All right, we got a special edition podcast tonight, I suppose we'll say. We're almost in agreement. Sam's in the room. I got, I don't know. We'll let him explain himself here in a second. Tyler Givens is sitting in with us tonight. Max is on vacation. AC is alive, I think. But he is otherwise predisposed as per usual. So that's the lineup for tonight. Anyway, we're almost in agreement at gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to our website, almostagreement.com. While you're there, check out the Voter Guide 22. I've got the ballot items, the 4 ballot items with Becky Massey on there, as well as the handful of candidates that I have that are running in this upcoming November ballot. If I saw correctly, October 18th, so 3 weeks from now is when early voting starts. And you got 2 weeks of that, and then a couple days off, and then Election Day. So we're not far out from this thing. So it's going to do what it's going to do. So we're almost in agreement. Tyler Givens is sitting in. Sam and me, we're going to do what we do. I'm going to try to see if we can get Tyler uncomfortable, but I doubt it. I feel like that's a tall order.
Well, lay it on me, man.
Nah, I got nothing on that. I was thinking about it, though. Remember Jim? Sam? Jim, the fifth.
Oh, yeah.
Our fifth?
Yeah.
Like Jim died officially, and now AC has become Jim.
Yeah.
And so, for Tyler's sake, when we first started doing the show, getting on 2 years ago, we just kind of had a running joke that we had this Jim character that was always late, was always with his wife wouldn't let him get out of the house, that kind of bullshit. And we used to, that was the running joke, and that joke was started by AC, who has now become Jim. Which makes it's funny to me. For those handful of you that have been listening since the beginning, it makes sense. But anyway, Sam, how you doing, buddy?
I don't think we've referenced Jim in a long time.
It's been like a year plus. How's your week been?
Oh, it's been all right.
All right.
I'm liking the weather getting finally starting to cool off.
I do too. Jesus, yes.
Though it was like 90 for like 2 or 3 days, and I was like, what the fuck is this?
It's the standard Tennessee weather. It's I'm going to tease you,
right,
and I'm going to throw you back into whatever thing, because it does it in the spring too. It's like it's been 20 degrees for a month straight, and it's like 60, and you're like, yes, and then it goes back to 12 for a couple days.
Yeah.
So Tyler, what's new, buddy? Haven't talked to you since.
Well, I was running for county mayor last time I was here.
Yeah, that was back
as
a
Democrat. Yeah. That sounds right. That sounds right. So. Yeah, I'm not running for anything currently, although I've had a few folks ask me that about city council races and stuff.
But the more I've learned about you, the city makes more sense. I think that's where you as an individual are more focused on what's going on in the city than out here in the grander part of the county.
Yeah, we're way out in the county here, real far from the city.
Right.
Since it's right next door.
I'm pretty sure the dog in the intro was barking at somebody in the city.
Yeah.
But alas, but I'm just saying, like, it's a way out here for me. But I mean, there is still a little bit of rurality. Rurality, is that a word? I'm sticking with it. Rurality left in Knox County. I don't think it's going to last for long, but it's here, and so we'll pretend like it counts.
Yeah, a lot of subdivisions getting built out there.
Yeah, that's okay. So, because that's something I think, if I remember correctly, we talked a little bit about when you were on your campaign. The housing thing is crazy to me. Like, this doesn't make sense. Like, on the national level of it, like, where's everybody coming from? Because you still hear, like, and maybe it's the generic version of it, but you hear, like, your Californias, your big city Californias, not your rural California, but your New York City, your upper New Jersey, kind of stuff like that. But then you still hear on the news about how New Jersey is having housing issues, or New York City is having, like, at least housing affordability issue. But you think in the way the world is supposed to work, as supply outpaces demand, you start bringing prices down. And I can't figure out if just the landlords are refusing to lower their prices in New York City, or if however many hundreds or thousands of people have left New York City and they're still short.
Well, my theory on it, honestly, is, like you said, so there's been a lot of investment in real estate as a financial thing where people are buying properties and just hanging on to it.
Yeah, I think that's problematic.
Yeah, and I think that's hit a lot of the big cities like San Francisco, New York, a bunch of those places. And so you have gotten people leaving those places because the prices are so high, and then you've got empty real estate that people aren't moving into. But to use that kind of as a jumping off point, I was at a presentation by Sean Griffith of the city's homeless management group, and he was talking about the national shortage in housing, some hundreds of millions of units short of what we're supposed to have. It was pretty crazy.
But like, that's what I don't get. Like, this wasn't a conversation pre-pandemic, really. I mean, even early in the pandemic. But like, I mean, the migration to me started like, I don't know, April, May of that year. That's when the conversation of people getting out of these lockdown cities, coming down to the South, especially Tennessee's and Georgia's and stuff like that, started happening. But like, if that's the case, then this isn't a new issue. This is an old issue that we just didn't talk about. And now all of a sudden, it's one of the top issues that people are talking about right now.
No, I think you hit the nail on the head there, man. I think it is a very old issue that we just haven't talked about. I mean, I'm a policy wonk a little bit when you start talking about zoning and stuff like that. But you look at all of the subdivisions we were talking about getting built in the county. It's a lot of single family home stuff coming in, which just doesn't get the number of units that you need to really make up the gap that we've got. So, city and county both are doing a lot of stuff to build. To help support affordable housing. I think the city's spending they just started $5 million a year on it. I would argue we need a lot more. But yeah, there's things being done to kind of chip away at that and get the more dense housing here. But most of what we're building is still single family, and that's just not going to catch us up. We're never going to build.
And what high density we do have coming in is all high end high density, which is going to it puts most people out of contention for it, because there's the new one going in there on Summit and Gay Street. The Hatcher Hill property, did you see about that one? Mm-hmm. I mean, the lofts or whatever they're going to be in, they're going to be, $500,000, $750,000 lofts.
Yeah, that doesn't really help the housing crisis.
I mean, in some ways it does, because somebody is moving in there, and they're living somewhere now. I'm a little bit of a trickle-down housing person in premise, because I like the first house that we rented, my wife and I, before we were married or whatever, was over in... I don't know, is Fellini a bad word? I always get confused. Everybody calls it Fellini. Fulton High School, Old North Knox or whatever. It's a little 800 square foot, 2-bedroom, itty bitty house. Nobody's going to build that.
Right.
That's an affordable house, especially, we were fresh out of college, too dumb to actually go to real work yet, both servers and stuff like that. And that's what we were doing. And it was we were renting it. We weren't buying it, but I mean, rent was $650, something like that. It was affordable for our dumbass alcoholic lifestyle of the server game that we were living at the time. But I mean, it worked, and to me, that's a starter home. If you're going to buy a house or a first house and you get going, so that you could pay the rent and save a little bit of money. So then when the next step comes. So I think after that we moved to a duplex up by Central, and it was under 1,000, and it was a much bigger. Then it had a yard and stuff like that. That's when kids came along and ruined everything.
Well, duplex. There it is. There's density, right? That's not single-family home.
That's true.
It gave you that stepping stone.
And it was I'm pretty sure it was a converted. Yeah. It was a single-family home at one point.
Right. Well, it probably had to be rezoned for multi-residency and stuff like that.
Yeah.
I'm sure all the new neighborhoods they're building aren't going to allow people to sublet so easily. But
yeah, we were talking about that. We were looking at a house for my in-laws. We're trying to get them to move into town. They're getting a little older and stuff like that. And there's a house right around the corner here. Even further away from downtown, but still in the city. But it was a split. It was a basement rancher basically, but the basement came out ground level on the garage side, and I was like, we could duplex this easy if they'll let us.
Right.
And I mean, I'm trying to distance myself from the term libertarian, but it's my house. What's the matter? Who cares?
Yeah,
it's my house.
I agree with you there, Dan. At home is your castle, right? I feel like you should, whatever you do in your own home, whatever you do in your own body, that's your own business. That's how I feel about it.
Yeah, and so, but I agree. I think there's a density issue. And I think when I did the Henson show, that was his take. I thought was really interesting. It's there's this weird hang up about units per acre that the planning commission's kind of stuck on, and they don't want this weird. And it's He's like, we could keep the units per acre, but let's put it on half the space. So if you have a 10-acre plot, there's going to build a big thing on, build an apartment complex on the front half of it, have some open space, have some other stuff, and then have some big stuff in the back. And then you can have both, and you don't have to have this sprawl of a subdivision, but you have stuff. And I'm the only pushback to me that makes sense is that, well, then what happens when they turn the other half into an apartment complex and there's no green left, and now we have, super urban, 2 blocks of super urban somewhere random that's out in the country or whatever. But I don't know. I think it
seems like it would at least slow it down, right? It would slow down the disappearance of that green space if they were to use that kind of adjusted definition, like you say, of the units per acre. Yeah.
So I don't know. It's an interesting problem. That's I don't know. I think I'd be okay with with not doing a single family home ban per se, but at least not having a zone for single-family homes.
Yeah,
so it's you know what? You're the developer, you're the homeowner, you can build a quadplex as long as it fits the other regulations, you have the space and the wastewater can handle 4 units instead of 1 and all that. As long as everything adds up, if you want to put more on it than one house, I don't see the issue.
Yeah.
Because I think, and again, this was from the sales show when I did him. He's like, if they did that now, it's not like your neighbor's going to sell his house and they're going to put an apartment complex up. But when he does, I'd be pissed off. I don't know. I'd be kind of bummed about it. But again,
it's his property. What business
I
of yours,
agree.
man?
I'm allowed to be pissed. I'm not going to go to.
go.
I'm not going to say, Mayor Jacobs, this is not okay. You should do something.
You're a private citizen. You're allowed to be pissed at your neighbor. That's
Right.
different than the government telling you can't do something.
Exactly. See, you follow her, man.
Yeah,
so I want to. Okay. So the real that's not true at all. But I'm going to say it is. The only reason I really wanted to have you here is I wanted to talk about your attendance at this Klan rally this weekend.
Oh, hey, don't say it that way. that is exactly the opposite of what I did this weekend.
I mean, you went to the place where the Klan rally was going on.
I did go to Tazewell where they were having a Klan rally. That's correct. Yeah.
Because I want to start off with whoever organized that event's an idiot.
Yeah.
Obviously, if they're Klan people, they already start off on a lower plane than the rest of us. But then they go a step further and schedule it against the Florida home game,
Right.
on the first weekend of fall. There's so many things that you don't schedule against that in Knoxville. So Klan's dumb, and then scheduling's dumb. But tell me more. Tell me what happened.
Well, gosh, where do I start? I guess I start with a flyer. So I'm an activist in addition to being a politician, and I'm an amateur journalist sometimes too.
I want to talk more about that later too. But yes, go ahead.
Yeah, so well, just to briefly. So I've rubbed shoulders with a lot of people at protests who are, shall we say, more underground than myself. So I've got some contacts. Anyway, that Klan rally flyer came out through some various internet sleuth forums who look for these kind of things, and I was just going to kind of read what was on the Klan rally flyer here. So
we talked about it last week.
Oh, you did, yeah.
I'll pull it up on the screen for you if you want.
Yeah. I pull it. Yeah, that'd be great. So yeah, it was a Klan rally in Tazewell, open to the public, location 3100 US 25 East Tazewell. The local community of activists, left-wing and anti-racist, I guess Antifa folks, if you want to, decided that the right thing to do was to counter-protest this event. So I went out there as well and took some pictures and looked around Tazewell to find any evidence of Ku Klux Klanners. But the day of, we didn't see any out there, to be honest. In the week leading up to the Klan rally, there were some press releases. Black Coffee Justice put out some, and there were some flyers they put out as well that were doing a kind of a call to action, asking people to call the mayor, call the sheriff, call the governor, whoever, send a bunch of emails in. And actually, both the mayor, the Claiborne County mayor, the Tazewell City mayor, the Claiborne County sheriff, and the Tazewell police chief put out a joint statement, basically saying, everybody's got free speech rights. If as long as things are happening on private property, we can't do anything about it. And if people are, have their rights to counter protest as well. I think the sheriff made some kind of statement about, don't give them the attention, just stay home, I think is what he said.
Right. Okay. So real quick, talk about this. You told me in chatting about getting the schedule together for tonight that there was no turnout.
So yeah, when we talked previously, so like I said, when we were out there, we didn't see anybody, but we did get a couple photos from that same forum that published the flyer originally that claimed to be of the event. It looks like they had a small event, maybe I guess it was about 20 folks. Big picture of a cross burning, 20 guys standing around. I got the pictures on my phone. I could show them to you. That really helps for the radio audience, I know. But yeah, we didn't see. There was a couple locations that were suspected spots for the rally based on that 25E location. There was actually no mailbox marked 3117, so we couldn't find that exact address. But there was, property near that had. It was kind of secluded and sound like the place they had been describing for their Klan rally. And there was another farm a little up the road that had been identified as being associated with somebody who was associated with the Klan in the past from the internet forum again. Was like, oh, these people are associated. But we didn't see anybody at either of those locations on that day. So I don't know if all the public attention sent them underground or what happened.
They're all at the football game.
That's right. It was just a bad scheduling.
I mean, it's important when you're doing events like that. It's a smart weather weekend. You know,
Yep,
it was a good day to be outside, and
Oh, it's lovely.
A bonfire would be nice to have. Would have been nice to have on a
bonfire, yeah,
on that evening. Now, to shape your bonfire is a little weird, but you know,
Right,
have it. But
right.
I don't know. It's just it seems so weird to me that they would advertise it that way.
Yeah. Like it was advertised as like a family fun event. We're going to have a picnic with the Klan.
Well, I mean, it's probably not inaccurate historically speaking, but it just seems like in today's online internet and whatnot,
Right.
stuff going on, that to put out a flyer like that seems a little ill-advised. But again, like we're already making fun of him for scheduling, so
Right.
a dumb flyer could go with it too, I suppose.
Yeah, I certainly wouldn't make a flyer like that, but you know, that's not me.
See, I mean, I don't like my issue with it. I guess I agree with the mayor's joint statement or whatever. It's like, okay, go in a field and be stupid together. That's whatever. I don't like. I'd be curious to know. Like, I'd really be curious to know if there was anybody that showed up that wasn't like directly involved with this small group of people. Like, if there's any newbies that were like, oh, let's check it out, I'm curious.
Right. Well, that seemed like that was kind of their idea with that flyer, right? It was like they were trying to get a few newbies.
Right. It seemed like a recruitment event. See what we do. Bring your family, kids can play together.
Right.
We could talk to you about how
networking,
how much we hate things.
Yeah.
But I don't know. It's just I don't know. It's just again like I don't know. I think it's stupid, but I don't think it's I don't think it should be that big a deal.
Yeah.
At least,
well, I mean,
again, going on the government interaction part.
Yeah.
Like I
don't think the mayor's statements honestly were out of line. I mean, I honestly, that is really what I would want the government to do, is to say it's on private property. Now, there were I guess there's an argument that the Ku Klux Klan is a terrorist group. I don't know if they're officially named that, and there should be some federal blah blah blah. But I don't see what that has to do with the mayor. You know, of the
right. I mean, I guess if they're officially designated as, and these people are identifying themselves as, which there's the whole domestic terror thing's weird too. But
yeah.
At least the specifics on this one, like if it is clearly designated as, then I guess it makes sense. I don't know if it does either, honestly, because again, on the same premise of, you know, any other group wanting to meet and do a thing, if the state doesn't like them, good.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm a protester, man. I go where the state doesn't really want me to be all the time. So.
Yeah, so to me, I guess, and I get it for the specificity of this one, but at the same time, to me, it's like we have to let this one exist for all the ones that we care about to be able to exist. Mm-hmm. Because if we get to a point where we're okay with shutting this one down, then you are at least complicit in getting your own shut down in the future. Yeah. And that's my fear when I always see one of these things pop up, where it's like, call the mayor and tell him we can't let this happen. It's like, no. Call the mayor and say, this is a bad idea. Well, make sure everybody's safe. Don't let anybody get hurt in the process. Make sure you're aware of it and your police department's aware of it and stuff like that. But other than that, the idea, again, to the libertarian, is like the idea that I would call Mayor Jacobs and tell him not to let my neighbor do a thing in his yard seems ridiculous to me. Because I want to do things in my yard, and I don't want my neighbor calling me and telling me I can't do it, or calling them. Well, yeah, I don't want the sheriff showing up at my front door and be like, "Hey, your neighbor said this is going on." I had that issue, but that was fire. But
no, I agree with that philosophy entirely, and you know, I guess the point I would think of contacting the mayor and the police and the sheriff's department, like you said, is the Klan. This particular Klan rally might be a bunch of idiots, but the Klan in the past has been dangerous, right? They are bordering on terroristic in various, or not. But you know, we want the local law enforcement to be aware of the event and to be keeping tabs on it, not necessarily go on the property and stop it, but you know. So I guess the mayor's statement was not like a disappointment to me. You know, it's just like, I think that is an appropriate thing to do, raise attention with the local elected officials. And
I think it's perfectly appropriate for a group to go up and be like, don't be part of those idiots over there.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, that's the spirit of the counter protest, right? Is to say that, you know, you guys are allowed to have your free speech and say all this racist bullshit you like, and we're allowed to stand here and say you guys are bad people and you suck because of the things you're doing, and other people should be ashamed to join you, and that's what we're here is to say. Right,
and anything above verbal whatevers becomes assault and should be arrested, and we go on. Right. I think that's the way the world should work. Mm-hmm. I wish we were better at that at large. And in all the different protests that go on and stuff like that. So, all right. Well, that was less fun than I was hoping.
Sorry, man. Fireworks. Man. You know, I did have the FBI show up my door Monday morning, but it turns out it was for something unrelated. So, boy, I thought about canceling because I don't want them showing up at my door. Yeah. I thought I was famous there for a minute, but it turns out it might not have been about the rally.
I mean, am I
after all.
harboring a fugitive right now? You're freaking me out.
Oh no.
You're not allowed to stay here. But yeah, so I don't know, Sam. What's new with you?
Nothing new.
just throwing it out there.
Same old.
I know. It's I
Trying to think, I'm always reading new news stories, but I forget half of them.
yeah.
I was like, oh, it's interesting. I need to remember that.
I do too. I do that a lot. What do we have? Oh, speaking of dogs, there's that whole Young Williams thing that went on last week. But I'm trying to think what else is going on in the bigger news part. I think all of these ballot items are dumb. Not really. Like three of them. Like I'm a no on one, and then yes on the other three. Because yes, we should have some sort of paperwork version of what happens if the governor gets temporarily hurt and can't do the job for a period of time. We're the only state that doesn't have something like that. Any form of slavery should be abolished in the state, regardless of incarceration. I'm good with that. Mm-hmm. And the fourth one doesn't matter. The Supreme Court said that we can't preclude priests from holding office anyway, so that's just cleanup. My guess is none of them are going to pass, personally. I don't think enough people will vote. I think the fourth step in the amendment process is going to hold up all four of them.
Yeah, I don't know. Do you know the history of the success of ballot initiatives in Tennessee? I mean,
that's a good question. I don't know.
Yeah.
I haven't paid attention until recently, so I mean, like the last gubernatorial race, I don't know if we had any ballot items on it. Actually, now that I'm thinking about it, but I mean, it's just like that the governor's race, 50% plus one bit, I think is a high threshold. I think it should be a high threshold. We're talking about constitutional changes. It should be difficult to change. We shouldn't just be like, I want to do this now. Like, it should be a high threshold to change. It sucks that most of them are cleanup. But, you know, it's again, it goes to one of my broader issues is the civic understanding of what's going on, how these things work. Like, to me, if you're not going in, if you don't already know what you're doing on your four ballot items, you're probably going to skip them. And then if you do, then it's probably not going to pass. Yeah,
I've seen some ads for vote no on Amendment 1.
Right.
I thought I saw an ad for Amendment 4 somewhere too.
1 and 3 have some campaigns happening.
Yeah.
Becky was complaining that nobody would fund a campaign for hers, and it's like, I don't understand. Like, I'm curious what the impetus of getting 3 on there is. Like, it seems to me, it doesn't seem to me like that's something that the state of Tennessee would really particularly give a shit about. Is clarifying that even if you're incarcerated, we can't use you for slave labor. Like, I feel like that's something that the state would probably be generally okay with. I don't know why. I don't know exactly what the backstory on why that one got on this ballot.
Yeah, I don't know.
And then again, the number 4 one, like I said, it's just cleanup.
Yeah,
so it doesn't matter.
Maybe number 3, the slavery thing, was just a pet issue of her bringing it forward. You know, it's the 13th Amendment of the U.S. Constitution allows blah blah blah. I can't amend that one so easily. So at least amend the one we got.
Yeah, but I just don't I don't quite understand. I don't understand the impetus behind it and or who's pushing for it as far as what little marketing there has been on it. But number 1's got a bunch, and obviously I would say the majority of the left is probably a no, as well as anybody that's labor friendly is a no. I'm not a no for labor reasons. I'm a no because I think it's inappropriate. I just don't. It doesn't make that is not an issue to me that I think should have a long-term nail in it.
Yeah. I listened to the show from last week. I don't talking about that, and I agree with that. There shouldn't be any. The current government should not be able to lock out the next elected government from 3 to 8 years from making a change.
Right.
You know,
on something ridiculous. Like this, I mean, there is on slavery issue. Yes, it should be a big deal if we ever decide in the state of Tennessee that we want slavery back. You should be high hurdles to get stuff like that back on the, or I guess it would be amended out of the Constitution for the future or whatever. That's something that makes sense to me. That should but labor issues that just doesn't fit the mold for me on that.
Yeah, to make it a constitutional issue. You mean?
Yeah, because it's such a big issue. Because I mean, again, like if over the next 4 or 5 years, the state of Tennessee, especially the bigger cities, but even some of the rural areas start pushing a little bit left, and it becomes a actual real campaign issue where people are voting for candidate X because that person is pro-union and they're going to help move some union stuff into the state. That person running, probably more often than not, doesn't even realize that they can't get in there and write a bill and change some of the labor law now. They either have to go in there, write a bill, get it on another session, which means they have to get reelected to keep running it. Sort of. Somebody else can pick it up, but at least they have to run at least 2 sessions if they're in the House, and then get to the next year to try that. And so it can be. It's a minimum of 3 years.
Yeah, and like, what else do we do that for? What other rules do we do? What other,
Right? Yeah, like this, the succession of governor if he happens to get hurt.
Yeah.
That makes sense,
Sure.
because that should be something that stays that way constantly. And the fact that it was missed in writing, I guess, is kind of weird. The idea that wasn't thought of in the original process seems like one of those, like, what happens if he falls off his horse and gets knocked out and he's in a coma for 2 weeks? Who's in charge?
Did people not get incapacitated in history? They just died?
Yeah, maybe. Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, he fell off his horse. He's dead now.
Stupid medicine.
Might as well be.
Keeping people alive when
Yeah.
they shouldn't be. But yeah, so I don't know. I think again, the most important thing to me is wherever you lie on the 4, figure out what they are before you go in. Don't sit there, especially on Becky's number 2. It is an entire page. It is crazy, and it's really wordy, and it's really weird, and like I don't know why. And especially like she was talking about, she's like, I don't get to write them. I was like, I know, it's the Secretary of State or whoever gets to actually put it in there or whatever. It's like, why would they write it so damn wordy? Like this fixes the gap between regular governor and dead governor. There's a gap in there that if something happens, we don't have a plan. This fixes that gap. Would you like something to fix that gap? Yes or no?
Yeah.
That is number 2, if anybody wants the short version. So, I'm trying to think. There's a lot. I mean,
well, the city council's been really interesting lately. I don't know if you've been keeping up with that much.
I try to, but it's they go on in dinner. They interrupt at dinner.
Yeah, they do, and sometimes they go really late too. Yeah, there was a couple controversial issues that got a lot of people to show up. There was that Cradle of Country Music Park.
Right, we saved the trees.
We saved the trees. That's right. That was a big kerfuffle.
I've made a decision on that. If I'm ever putting something together like that, if my plan involves cutting down trees, as soon as it is signed, I cut down the trees. This process, and this happened in Market Square too, and they end up saving the trees there. But like they design this whole big thing, and they make a big deal out of it, and they go through. I mean, the Cradle of Country Music Park art program thing was like a 3-year thing, where they went through public meeting after public meeting with artists, all the different stuff. And they finally get the plan together. The pandemic slows it down, and they finally get to the point where they're going to put this thing in. It's like, wait a second, you're cutting down trees? Yeah, we figured this out 4 years ago.
Yeah.
So if I'm running one of those plans, as soon as it's signed off of, I'm cutting down the trees.
That was a part of the original plan?
To cut down the trees?
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was. Yeah, it was. It seemed like the planning process for that was, I guess they had public meetings, but they had so many. It seems like it was a little closed. It seems like there was just a ton of people or a small group of people who were really focused on it, and then the wider public.
I'd be curious to talk to Sierra Club about it, because they're the ones that were the kind of the catalyst of this round of outrage about cutting down the trees. And it's like, where were you guys in the first round? Mm-hmm. What do we have? We have a city arborist, right? We have a guy that his job is to care for all of the trees that are in the city limits or whatever. That guy was part of the planning thing. He knew those trees were coming down. I would think that would be a person that you talk to fairly regularly and stuff like that. Yeah. Like, where were you guys in the original process? Because this was cleared in the Ruggiero administration.
I mean, the arborist would look at it from an ecological standpoint. He's not going to say, "Oh, the aesthetics of this, blah blah blah." That's not his wheelhouse. So he's only going to say, like, "Okay, well, they're healthy, but if you guys want to chop them down, there's a way."
Yeah, I guess he's not really more of a bureaucrat than a policy.
Right. He's up
person.
for saving the trees, making sure they're not getting diseased, etc.
The city does have a tree canopy plan, though. I think that's like a planning.
Because I know that's one of the policy things they went into place a little before that, is that for every inch of trunk that is cut down in the city on city property, they have to replace that in kind. And so if you take one 12-inch diameter tree and cut it down, you have to plant as many saplings to replace that 12 inches immediately, not when the tree grows up, but right now. So if you cut a 12-inch tree down, you'd have to plant 12 1-inch trunk trees. Mm-hmm. Immediately.
I think the Sierra Club's argument was that that's not sufficient. Like 12 baby trees isn't the same as one mature tree, and not guaranteed they're going to live and
whatever.
Blah, blah,
but but I guess again the point being is like to going back to my stupid plan, but is where was all this conversation? Like, because apparently this is normal. This that a lot of plans like this, when they go through, they get passed, they get cleared. There's not a bunch of stink about the trees specifically, and then all of a sudden when it gets to go time and the lumberjack's out there with his chainsaw, they're like, wait a second, what are you guys doing?
Yeah.
I doubt it was advertised at like, oh, hey, in this new thing, we're going to take down 8 trees. I'm sure they probably just showed mock-up pictures of it. And
Right.
just,
I mean, was it
maybe it just never crossed anybody's mind.
was it advertised a month ago that they were going to oh, hey, this thing's finally going and we're going to cut down these trees?
I think that's what it was. It's like the final plans had just come out because there was they had to redesign the plinth or the structure. Like the actual sculpture itself has been designed for years,
Right.
but then they had to design a support structure for it, and I think that was only finalized recently. And so I don't know if they're not exactly sure when they did determine which trees were going to be cut. So
It went from random to take out all these trees to actually we can still do this and keep the trees.
yeah, that's what I thought was so interesting is that it only took like 2 conversations over a couple days for them to save 4 out of the 5 trees. It's like why would you not just leave them up to begin with? And the sculpture is even supposed to look like arboreal. It's supposed to look kind of
Right.
tree-like. So
I'm curious to see the thing when it gets there.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. I go back and forth on my feelings on public art. It depends. If the public art's good, I'm down. But like if
well, I really like the public art in Crutch Park, but I wouldn't say that all of it's good. But that's part of what I like about
yeah,
it.
there's some fun stuff down there.
Yeah, there's some.
I like
fun stuff.
the telescope. Probably my favorite. Mm-hmm. I like that one. That's fun.
It's a good one.
Yeah, but I don't know. I don't know. Again, to me, it's like the city put through all this process, and I think my understanding of it is from the original, the plan was to take down those trees, and that was from the plan in 2016, 17, whenever it was that they were originally doing it. And I just don't understand where the Sierra Club was then, because there's somebody on there that pays attention.
You would think so, yeah.
Because I don't like who from the Sierra Club found out that they're cutting down the trees now that brought up all this thing. Because I don't think it was advertised to say, like, I don't think WBR was like, oh, hey, this new art project that Ruggiero did that we all forgot about, it's about to go in. Oh, by the way, they're cutting down a bunch of trees, and that's got everybody all pissed off.
Yeah, somebody
I mean,
definitely
WBR didn't run it the fucking story, probably, period, but they might have run the protest just because it was something exciting.
Right.
But I don't think anybody was talking about it in any way that the mass of Knox County or the city of Knoxville knew that they were cutting down trees all of a sudden.
I'd say most people didn't even know that was even going in.
I agree.
Right.
But the people that do know knew, and those are the same people that should have known
Right.
5 years ago that are the ones that got excited now. That's my issue. It's I don't care. It's not about saving the trees or not. It's about
Right.
if you're gonna go through this, if you're gonna be the Sierra Club and you're gonna be like every tree matters, we need to keep every tree standing, then where were you in the original process when this was a public process where you could come in and they could be designed as such and not have to be adjusted on the other side?
I mean, it could have just been enough people that were against that decided, I guess, to find a bigger firm, a bigger conservancy like the Sierra Club. They're like, hey, we probably got
But again,
snowball's chance in hell of doing this unless we actually bring somebody seriously involved in it.
That still doesn't answer my same question.
This is just gesture.
I know, but it's still, if you are correct in your guess, still doesn't answer. That person that said, oh, let's get the Sierra Club on board to help us out, where were they in the earlier process? It doesn't change. Like, why was it not an issue when it was designed and planned under the Ruggiero administration, but it is now? And I agree, most people don't pay attention. Like I said, apparently this is a normal thing. Jesse and Scott were talking about it.
You'd have to find somebody back from that far.
Like with a lot of these things, like all this stuff is planned and done, and then when implementation time comes around years later, that's when all the real pushback happens.
Well, hey, it's going to city council for a vote. Now everybody pays attention to city council, sees it coming up.
Right.
So, you review what's on the docket for this week. Oh, they're cutting trees.
Right. Like I said,
any major project's always changing.
Yeah.
I mean, they still don't have a
if it
final.
involves trees, you cut them down right away. That's what I'm saying. Anything that's going to...
That's an interesting lesson to take from it instead of design around the trees the first time.
or I mean, whatever. Or like if there's no pushback on the trees part in the process, then cut down the trees. If there's pushback in there, and then you adjust to, because that's the point of having the public hearings on it.
Oh, trees are always good then, man.
But we're trading. We would have been trading 5 for like 30.
Well, they're still putting the saplings in too, so I guess it was a win-win,
it's a win-win.
for the Sierra
All
Club.
right. All right.
So maybe by waiting to the last minute, they got the plan for all the saplings to be planted, and then they're like, all right, now that we've got the saplings, let's save the trees.
Maybe that would be some 3D chess version of this thing.
Maybe the engineers got to be paid twice to do dual designs.
Yeah. Some consultant probably got a little bit overtime on it, and so
props.
All right, sure, I'll do it
again. Couple of lawyers involved,
I'll do it again. Yeah.
I don't know what else has happened in the city recently.
Let's see. I'm trying to remember. There was, they always, when they have the public forums and a bunch of people are speaking on an issue, they're limited to 3 speakers for, 3 speakers against, and then the council can suspend its rules to allow more speakers. And they always suspend the rules and allow everybody to speak, always. But Tommy Smith very vocally voted no to allow the rest of the tree people to give their speeches after they had already said, well, we've got a plan to save the trees. Do we want to let all the tree people speak? And Tommy was like, no.
I mean, I get it. Like, I went.
Yeah,
I
get it too. I get it too. It was just funny.
They were doing on the commission was adding a community something to the health thing, early pandemic stuff. And it was when I was all excited and doing stuff on here, and was really jazzed up about it. And so I was like, yeah, I'll do it. I'll put my name in the hat. So I go down to that meeting, and that was one of the 7-hour, anti-lockdown, pro-lockdown,
man.
public forum. And like, I mean, at one point that was when Larson was chair, and he's like, is there anybody that has a different thing to say? Like, I understand and you all have your right, and I'm not trying to say you shouldn't have your turn, but if you're going to get up in here and say this thing that 15 people have said before you, or 15 people against said before you, we're not getting anywhere. We see that you're here. We understand that this is important, and we take this seriously, but we'd really like to end this meeting at some point.
No, they've written their 5-minute speech, man. They've got to read the whole thing.
Right, and so they did, and so we sat there.
It's my right.
Hey, this is the one time a year a lot of those people were coming to speak.
But what's funny to me is that, it was big. It was
commission.
packed out. There was protesters outside. You heard people yelling outside when I got there, and I ended up in the small room in the back because they'd packed out the main room, and I was in the small room in the back watching it on the TV or whatever. And they took a break, and I poked my head in the door, and there was like nobody in there. So it's like, okay, I'm gonna come over here. And so as these people are waiting an hour to speak, they're leaving, so they don't want to hear anybody else talk.
That's right. Everybody
they just want to
speak.
say their piece. It doesn't matter that everybody's already said what they're going to say. It doesn't matter that there's 10 people after them that are going to say the same thing. I'm here to talk. Commission has to listen. That's all that matters. And so it's like, as it gets to the end, there's me as Todd Frohmeyer, because Todd was public speaking on something not related to the thing. It was a development issue that he was pitching a fit on. And then 3 of the 7 people who applied for this community member entry thing. And then Larson tried to be like, well, we'll do the community member thing in the next meeting. I was like, no. Like, I got mad. Like, I got up. I was like, no, I sat through this whole thing. You're doing this tonight. If they left or didn't show up, that's their problem.
Yeah. They did that to the tree people the first time. They the first time the issue of the Cradle Country Music Park was supposed to come up, they delayed the vote till the next meeting. So there was like 30 people there about the trees. So they were just like, what? We're not doing our agenda item now? But a lot of them came back. So I guess I can understand why they would be especially wanting to read their speeches since they had to come twice.
That's fair. But no, it's not.
That's really
like at some point it's like at some point you got to be sitting there being like, all right, I'm on both hands and at least one full foot of people that have said exactly what I'm going to say.
Right.
I don't have a line in here that is just going to be a mic drop. Everybody goes, wait a minute, that is the thing. I'm going to call it a day. I'll sit and wait, and I'll abstain when my turn comes up, and we'll see if we can get this thing over with.
Or just go up to the podium and say, everybody before me said what I wanted to say. I just want to say I support or oppose.
Right.
Blah, sit down.
Ditto.
Right, there you go.
There's your mic drop.
There's your mic
yeah,
drop.
there's your mic drop.
But I don't know. So I like, because the public forum stuff gets weird to me. Like, and I don't like. I can't remember who I was talking to about it, but like, it's an interesting little sampler of reality because it's not real. Yeah. I mean, when you get down to it, like, I don't know, on a big one, what are you talking, like 50, 75 people getting up there and speaking of, well, City of Knoxville, 280,000 or whatever the number is now.
Gosh, that many people would be huge. I mean, like a dozen is a lot.
Right. And so, but that's what I'm saying, though, and it's like, they have valid points, and it's like, but as an elected official, and it's like, well, like, so say I'm District 2-ish in the city if I was in the city. So if I'm Roberto and I'm going like, well, I'll say my crazy number of 50 people spoke. None of them were from my district. Because you got to give your address, or you're supposed to give your address. A lot of people abstain from that or whatever. But they give their address, and it's like, none of those are my district. What do I do here? Like, I hear you, and you're city residents, and I represent you all. But at the end of the day, District 2 is mine, and I've had a million emails on this, and this is the consensus I came to from my emails and people I'm talking to in my neighborhoods. How do you handle that? Like, it's a curiosity that I have. It's like,
how do you count the emails versus the people that show up? Is the people that show up worth 2 emails?
Right. Is it 2 emails and a half a phone call?
Right.
Because if they got your number, they must be important. So maybe the phone call is a 3-pointer.
Okay.
I don't know. Like, I'm just curious how people look at that as an elected official, because I don't know how I'd handle that, because it's like, because at the end of the day, realistically, most of them, it's like, this is what I think is the right thing to do. Unless it is something that is so specifically vocally from everybody he talks to in his or her district that say yes or no to whatever.
Or just some out of the blue issue where you don't have a strong opinion to start with as a council member, and you're like, oh, I guess I better check with the community.
Right.
You could see that happening. But
yeah, and I don't know. It's interesting. It makes you question my want to ever run for anything.
Yeah, there's a lot of burdens that come with being an elected official.
1 6-hour commission meeting. Yeah, can I retire? How does this work?
I got to do it every other week.
Call my neighbor. Can you start a recall? You only have to get like 10,000 signatures on the petition to get a recall or something ridiculous. Have you looked into it? I don't know the commission one or the city one specifically. Sure. It's big numbers. You got to get a big number of petitions. I think it's the same as a ballot initiative. If you want to do a ballot initiative, city of Knoxville is like 15%, I think. So
and I think I want to say it's based on the last mayoral race too. The number you have to get. I'm not sure if it's based on the race that they were in. You know?
Yeah, I don't remember. Good question.
It's like the you're talking about the rule for the 100,000, 50,000 plus one.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's like that. It's like the mayor's election is the one.
Well, that's better.
Too,
that might be easier than ballot access ones, because ballot access ones 10%. 10% of the electorate you're seeking, which is weird because like if I was to run for if I was to actually be a libertarian and try to run for county District 4 as a libertarian, I'd have to get 10% of Knox County.
That's a big number.
Even though I'm only running for District 4, which is, like, I don't know, 8%? It's probably a little more than 8% of Knox County's residents or whatever. I'd have to get more than my district in petitions to get the L after my name. That's all I'd get.
Yeah.
Well, if I was independent or an L, I'd get I could get primaried by another L, I guess, but that's all I'd get is an L after my name. But like who was it? It was one of the school board District 7, Sherry Garrett, because she's running against Dominique Oakley. She's like, well, if you're running as an independent, you're hiding something. It's like, what?
It's kind of a weird thing to say.
I was like, I don't understand. They're like, tell me more about that. Please explain to me why you think that. Well, that's essentially, like, it's like you have to be a Republican or Democrat. That's the only thing that exists. It's like, I could see how people think that way.
Right. And having grown up in this country and lived in this country and our electoral system, it might seem that way.
Right. But there is options. There are things.
Hypothetically.
Right. Right. It's not easy to do. I want ranked choice. That's my solution.
Yeah.
I don't care about parties. Just put ranked choice in. You can keep your parties. And if they want to do a primary, then they can do closed primaries or convention of primary. And if your Republicans want to put a candidate, because what they don't want to do is put two candidates on a ranked choice because that'll murder them.
And it does seem like ranked choice has been a pretty good solution. They implemented that in Alaska recently, right? Got rid of Palin that way, I think.
Kept Palin out. She's still the front runner because that was a weird special election too.
Yeah.
Because the guy died. That was a special election to fill his seat, but it's also the end of term. Mm-hmm. And so that special election's for like the next month and a half until November. Well, I guess it's till whenever inauguration day is too. But so it's like a 4-month gig that they're also running to re-elect. That person is running for re-election as well as Palin and somebody else.
That sounds like a nightmare.
Yeah.
I only kind of ran for election once, and that was enough work.
Yeah, I don't like I've thought about it a lot, and I'd kind of like to. I should. I think it's too late now. I should have done a write-in campaign for 18. I'm not happy with my choices from District 18, and that's one of those that's the excuse a lot of people give you. Like, why are you doing this? It's like, well, looking around, and I don't like the quality of the candidates that I'm getting, and if it's not me, who kind of thing.
Yeah, somebody's got to run, right?
Well, let's do it. And so, I don't know. I feel kind of bad. I didn't mean to be rude to, and I apologize to whomever you were. I had an Elaine Davis knocker come in the middle of cooking dinner, and I wasn't meaning to be rude. It was just like, she's like, I'm here to talk about Elaine Davis or whatever. It's like, I'm in the middle of dinner, and tell her to answer emails.
Ooh.
And she's like, what? I was like, I've been emailing her. I've been wanting to talk to her. And then I went and grabbed my Almost an Agreement business card and I gave it to her. I was like, have her hit me up. I've been wanting to talk to her for a while. And I was like, also tell Eric that I need his help too. Because they've both been, I've been emailing and texting both of them regularly because I want to get Elaine on the show because I've already had Kaplan and I want to get, I'd like to try to be fair and get both sides. Also, it's me and I want to be selfish so that I have better understanding who I'm voting for. But, I just haven't been able to get a hold of them and get set up to do an interview with her. And so I came back in, I text Eric, even though he hasn't answered me in a while. I was like, hey, man, tell that door knocker that just came to my house that I'm sorry. I wasn't trying to be rude. I was in the middle of dinner, but I was also kind of joking about it. I was like, I want to talk to you guys. I just don't want to talk to you right now.
Yeah.
And like I realized that was a joke to me. She has no idea what I'm talking about. I'm just some dude talking about how her, who she's campaigning for won't answer her emails.
Yeah.
And so...
I have to say, some of the doors, when I was knocking doors, when I was campaigning, some of my favorite doors to knock on, I'd knock on the door, say, I'm Tyler Gibbons, running as a Democrat for Knox County Mayor. They'd say, I'm a Republican. I'd say, thank you. They saved me a lot of time. So maybe...
Why'd you knock on their door? Did you not pull the shit from...
I did some of that too, but also I was just going to low-income apartment complexes and just knocking on every door too.
Because that's what I'm curious about, because she knocked on my door, and like I came back in and I had that immediate, like, oh shit, I was kind of a dick. And so I went back out to see if she was like 2 doors down. I was going to walk down there and be like, hey, I'm sorry, I wasn't trying to be rude. Let me explain. I do this podcast. I talked to Kaplan. I talked to Testerman when she was in the primary against Elaine. I've been trying to get Elaine to come on the show. That's all. I was just joking about that. And so I looked down the street and there's like, no, she's gone. So it's only like I was one of very few houses apparently in this neighborhood that they're knocking on.
Oh, yeah.
Which
very targeted.
They should know better. I mean, really, they should know better. They're not one, they should know that I already know. Because the data's, they're smart enough to Eric Eric knows where I live, so he's been on the show. Eric's the campaign. I'm pretty sure Eric Waiter's running that campaign.
Yeah, but if they're using either the local database or the national database for their party, it's not going to have as specific. They use like apps. Minivan is one of the apps they use, and it automatically throws data to them. So they're not like individually picking out addresses. You were just on the list as somebody who votes.
Like I said, Eric's been here a couple times. I feel like he would recognize the address and been like, "Yeah, don't bother with him. He's wasting time." Not that I will or will not vote for their candidate. It's just that you're not going to teach me anything in the conversation.
Right. You got a little chip on your shoulder there.
I do.
A little bit.
Feeling pretty big. All right, feeling important.
He's been here. He's got to know my address. Yeah, he must have recognized it. I mean, it's only numbers and letters.
And big time political podcast host over here.
That's right.
What the heck?
Who does it better than me?
Nobody around here.
See,
I don't mean that boastfully. That's the sad part. It's not a boast. It's actually an indictment of what goes on around us. I mean, the Compass guys do great on there if you like to read. Some of us are lazy, and reading's hard. And so, I don't know. And still, even with the Compass one, it's like the print format doesn't work for me. And it's not that I don't like to read, but the print format doesn't work for me as well because there's something about hearing a voice and seeing a person talk against quotations on a page.
Yeah.
I think it's a great Bill Burr joke. He's got his whole thing about, it's a little bit racy. It's Bill Burr, but he's basically talking about how he's kind of flirting with this girl or whatever, and she's like, no, stop, and being like, but she says it like that, it's cool. But then the guy in court reading it in a transcript, no, stop.
Yeah, it's way different when
that's not what it sounded like. That's not how that was, and so that there's something about that for me that you get a little bit more feel out of it when you actually get to hear their voice and see them speak and see the way they conduct themselves in speaking to people. And then I get selfish. I get the pre and post talk because I find that everybody, Tyler included, before the mic's on and after the mic's off are super chatty. And sometimes you got to really... Tyler was good. I'm not saying you weren't great on the show, but there's a lot of people that it's like pulling teeth on the show. It's like, talk to me, tell me things, talk to me. I got ideas, tell me about your ideas, blah, blah, blah. But then as soon as I'm like, all right, good show, click. Oh, hey, blah, 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 blah. They get really excited.
It's different when you're on the record.
Yeah, people get nervous on the record.
It's a wise... especially if you're in politics, it's a wise way to be.
Well, and I'm sure they're going to their constituents like, hey, I was just on this. You want to hear me explain my issues?
I would hope they would. I doubt it. Right. But I would hope they would.
I did.
It depends how you feel coming out of the show. And I mean, honestly, and I've gotten shit from people about it, about me being too soft on people and not pressing shit. And it's like, I'm not smart enough yet. I don't know the depths of a lot of things. Like people bring why didn't you ask this person about that? And I was like, that was 6 years ago. I didn't care when that happened. Why would I automatically know that now? And so I get that as part of people kind of assume that this isn't just some new thing to me, that I just didn't all of a sudden wake up 2 years ago and be like, I want to know politics at Knoxville. But that's exactly what happened.
I was going to say, you've described the podcast that way many times when I've listened to it. So.
Yeah. Well, I mean, yeah, it's true. It's I don't a lot of little stuff kind of piled up. And really what it was is because what was the original plan when we first started talking about doing the show?
Don't remember.
There was no plan. We were just going to shoot the shit. I'm a Rogan fan. I was going to do the Rogan show with my non-famous friends. Which I'm not famous either, but that was the idea to me. We were just going to shoot the shit, talk about whatever we want to talk about, and inevitably we start talking politics. And inevitably, every time, especially with AC, we start talking politics. It rolls into this local matters, and none of us know what we're talking about.
Well, like you say, there can be a plan to remove a bunch of trees from a park, and nobody knows about it for 4 years until it gets up on the city council ballot, right?
Yeah, and what's interesting to me is, like, especially as I've started doing the Compass Guys show and producing that and hearing them talk, like, there's so much that it is like if you take everything else and it's just local stories, there's so much that it's weeks and weeks of the same story.
Yeah,
like it really is. It's weeks and weeks of the same story. It's coming up. So they do that next week. Here's what's going on in next week's calendar. City council's meeting about this thing. And like the tree thing. Like the tree thing was non-existent, and then
3-week story.
It's been like 6-8 weeks now.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
That at least it's a blurb in the podcast that I do with them. But they've had some bit of news of the week that goes into their paper every week on this one story. There's like right now there's like 6. I think I need to write them down. But there's like 6 kind of major stories floating around. There's the baseball project. There's the UT splitting the schools up thing, which I guess is final now, at least for the next couple of years. There was the art project story. There's the housing stories. And then there's a couple more that seem to be like repeating stories, and maybe they take a week or two off, and then they come back up for a couple weeks, and then they take a week or two off. And so there's not a ton of stories. There's just like 4 or 5 big complex ones that seem to just keep rearing their head. And whether it's because there's a bunch of opposition or because certain players are involved, and that's why it's a bigger deal. Boyd covers both in both UT and the baseball project, as well as there's a lot of opposition to both the baseball project as well as the splitting of the colleges, which I go both ways on the splitting of colleges thing. I don't really care. I think university is a problem. There's bigger problems with universities than that, but we don't need another dozen administrators either, so I'm good with that. But they celebrated their 4th anniversary a couple weeks ago. They've been doing the paper. And so I'd be curious to have a conversation with them about just that. Like how much time have you guys spent on, like, what are the top 5 stories of your 4-year thing? Like the ones that took the biggest headlines and that were like over and over and over again. Like it was just new layer. Like abortion's come one. I kind of feel like that's a pet project for Jesse. Like, and I don't mean that dismissively. I just think like I think he has a personal feel that this is important, and I agree that it's an important project.
Well, I think that actually it gets you good journalism a lot of times when people are really passionate about something and really want to dig into it.
Right, and I think I think one of the things that he goes on a lot about it, and I think it's the important part, is it's really like nobody knows what's going on. Like nobody actually understands. No OBs like understand what they can and can't do. And when you get into legal and losing your license, it's kind of like, well, nothing is the answer. And so then what happens? Because there are cases out there that it's a big deal if nothing happens.
Right.
And so I think that's an interesting aspect of that broader story.
Well, it was a big decision, which means it's going to have repercussions for a long time, right? I mean,
right. But my issue is like I think it's appropriate that if you're going to put something like this in place, then you need to be clear about what it is, and I think that's the number one issue. I think if you're an OB right now and you have a situation and you're concerned and it may kill the mother and kind of thing, but it's like, well, I don't know if I can or can't. When is my window to? And nobody will answer the question. Like I have a really not important version of this is when once upon a time I was trying to do a poker tournament, a charity poker tournament. I want to do a charity poker tournament. You get it, like this, the rule in the state, and I learned this in the process, is that gambling is absolutely legal in the state of Tennessee, especially for charitable causes, unless it has cards or dice. You have cards or dice, it's a whole different animal, and they're way more cautious and way more suspicious about what you're doing. So if you want to do bingo, as long as it's not for profit for the place running it, as long as the bingo is only for the players, stuff like that, ball boards and stuff like that, more or less totally legal. Nobody cares. But if it has dice or cards, they really care. And so I was like, okay, well, I want to do this thing, and I want to raise this money, and I'm going to give. Wounded Warrior Project was our sponsor or our planned recipient for that project, and we're going to donate all the money we raised to Wounded Warrior Project. And people donate prizes, so like all this stuff, and they're just trying to raise some money or stuff. Like I called all over the state, called the DA's office here, ended up with the assistant to the secretary of the assistant secretary to the Attorney General of the state of Tennessee, which gave me, I doubt you'll get arrested for it. That was the answer I got.
Wow, that's not much of an answer.
Exactly. And so, and so that being
there's a lot of things that can happen other than being arrested.
Right. Well, and so that being my result in trying to do a silly fundraiser poker tournament, I can only imagine where an OB is at right now when nobody's answering the questions.
Yeah, and don't we have like 3 different laws? There was the trigger law, and then there was like a 6-week ban, and I think there was something else. So there's like, until these things are adjudicated in some court,
right?
Who knows?
Right. And so some doctor is going to have to just do it and go through the process. And
nobody wants
then
to be
we'll
that
know
guy.
where we are on the other side. Right.
Do I want to make case law? I don't know.
Right. I mean, I could get my name stuck to it, and it stays there forever, and that's cool.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
But,
or you could go to jail and lose your license.
Right. But I still get my name stuck to it.
Yeah.
Might be worth it.
Yeah. Tough call.
Yeah. And so, I don't know. I don't know. I'm confused. I'm trying to figure out what I'm trying to figure out where I'm at on this election coming up. I'm trying to figure out, I don't. The governor's race is weird. The way the state of Tennessee does governor is weird. So it's really not that big a deal. Like the way the state works, the governor's not that. It's not a president. Like they don't have the power. It's not a mayor. As far as especially compared to the city of Knoxville, the American canon is the boss.
Yep. Yeah.
Governor Lee is kind of there.
Yeah.
Like it's a completely different system as far as who has authority over what and when and where. The state house and senate really run the show, and the governor just kind of thinks, eh.
Yeah, I feel like people don't really know that about the city, like how much power the mayor really does have in the city, as opposed to the county, right? Because the county mayor is in charge of a larger area, but seems to have like really less powers, especially in law enforcement. Because the sheriff's independent.
Right, because the sheriff's is separate. Well,
Yeah.
but even that, the commission doesn't have oversight. I mean, the merit thing, but that's weird.
Mm-hmm.
That being a completely separate entity, which I go back and forth on how I feel about that too, because I really don't know which ones makes more sense to me.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I like the idea that a local body has oversight on a police force.
Mm-hmm.
But I also kind of like the idea that the head of the sheriff's department has no responsibility directly to politically speaking, directly to a mayor or a commission. But I mean, again, I guess to be the important thing to as far as like functional knowledge of the way the state works, it's the sheriff works for the state, doesn't work for the county. That's just the way it's set up.
Right.
And
but the chief of police works for the mayor.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Which there's some fighting about whether they're transparent enough with their hiring process.
Yeah.
That's one that came up, which I don't know about. Like, I don't know. I get it both ways. Like, I wouldn't. I mean, I think it would. I think it would definitely damage an applicant pool to be public with it.
Right. Well, if it was, I feel like it should be standard practice for anything government to be public, right? So if it was standard practice for the process to be transparent and for the names of the individuals applying for the job to be public, then it would be a thing that happens all the time, and it wouldn't be a big deal when the chief of police name comes up or not a chief, a deputy chief or somebody in the ranks of your police department has applied for a job somewhere else. I mean, it would just be a normal thing. They're doing it. It's just like, people that whatever company you work for, somebody that you're working with has probably got an application in at another job somewhere. I don't see why it's such a big deal.
I've been curious to look into why he left New Orleans. I've seen a couple stories pop up, which I mean...
Oh, hey, yeah, I can talk about that a little bit.
Tyler's eyes lit up like, woo, Christmas.
Because I saw there was a couple national stories recently about some just allegations that was going on within the New Orleans Police Department. And
Yeah,
I was like,
so
this guy just recently came here. Like, I wonder if he was getting away from some stuff.
Well, here's what it was.
Right.
Forgive me if I'm a little fuzzy on some of the facts.
For
I
the
have my notes
record,
in front of me, but
Almost an Agreement does not endorse or automatically agree with anything that our guests say. We do not verify facts in real time.
We're just like you. We're listeners. We're just
people talking here. Okay. Anyway, go ahead.
All right. So Chief Noel was he was a deputy chief over a patrol division, and so he had a lot of officers under his command, a couple hundred, a lot of officers. But there was a particular division that was like the proactive enforcement division. So they were, plain clothes or going after drugs or gangs and stuff like that, right? And they got indicted with a bunch of Fourth Amendment violations, and some people got fired. Some people got.
So that was a group inside his patrol.
It was a group inside his department. They were
Okay.
underneath him. So, I mean, he was probably a couple steps above them, right? But they were underneath him. And as a result of this, they actually restructured that department and got rid of the proactive patrols. So they completely eliminated that group, said, we're not doing what they were doing anymore. We're going back to regular patrol policing. And they moved Paul Noel to another department. Now, depending on who you ask, some people might say it was purely lateral. Some people might say it was a slightly downward. But it didn't seem like he was implicated in anything. Like, it wasn't like he was directly involved with anything. It wasn't like he knew about it and didn't tell anybody. It was just, this happened under his command.
Right.
Some things got shuffled around.
It's the politics to say that, everybody in here is going to change around, so we don't want any names associated with the problems of this. Okay.
Yeah, just to be absolutely clear, there's no implication that Paul Noel ever had any wrongdoing in any of that. But he did get shuffled around for it. So that does, if that happened to me, I might be looking for a job elsewhere too, right? Be like, maybe I've hit the ceiling here.
Yeah.
So.
Because there's politics in that too, as far as, in any job, getting promoted, getting a higher rank or whatever it is your job does, there's politics in that. And you rub the commissioner or the mayor or something the wrong way. I get it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, he had also applied for Chattanooga police chief position, I think. And that
Tennessee's where to be. What's the place to be, Dolly? Dolly says so.
That's right. That's the place to be. And that was public. And he made a statement about how if the Knoxville process was as public as Chattanooga, he wouldn't have done it. But, you can say anything after the fact, right? So
yeah, you already got the job. You don't have to worry about it.
Right.
Yeah. So, I don't know. Do we get a full transparency on the next garbage collector for the city?
The next garbage collector doesn't command 400 armed men. So,
I have my own issues with police in general, and so I'm going to agree with that part for sure. I think that we as a society need to rethink what we're doing here.
Yeah.
I don't understand. I don't understand why. Generally speaking, especially again coming up with election stuff, a bunch of these midterm races, which we don't have. We got Burchett running, and so that's the Republican law and order. That's a big campaign pillar this time around, which it lands well. It polls well.
It's so confusing to me. Crime overall, even violent crime, is way down, but we've had a lot of murders
because Republicans are rural. And they don't have the crime, and so the fear of the crime moving into their neighborhood is what gets them activated about it, and which is its own politics bullshittery. But again, I just don't I don't know. I don't understand. I don't understand how anybody, myself included, thinks about law enforcement as far as what makes them successful. How do you say, all right, Chief Paul came in, you're doing your thing, you've been a successful police chief. What are the parameters that American Cannon has set up? Does she have that public? Has she said, these are the parameters of what we're going to consider? hell, we could throw in a fat bonus. Let's put a fat bonus check on if you can check these boxes. But what boxes make sense?
Well, Cannon would say recruitment. She's been pretty public about that. Recruitment and retention has been the issue that the city keeps saying they have with the police department. Now, if you ask me, they have other issues, but
right. Well,
they say it's recruitment and retention.
That's an easy answer. It's give me more money and I'll hire more cops. It's easy. It's done. at least, but it doesn't matter. You got to figure that part out. But, I don't know, like I said, but okay, so recruitment's one. That one makes sense, sort of, because, okay, we have more bodies.
Right.
Russia's recruiting more soldiers right now. Doesn't mean they're going to be any good at it.
Oh, boy.
They're pulling them out of their little farms, the reindeer herders and all.
Boy, that's a story.
That's crazy.
I saw.
Yes, they're going out to the random villages and towns all over Russia, the rural shit, and they are not, recruiting is an overstatement. They are taking people
conscription
against their will, and they're putting them in the army now. Yes, that is happening.
I just
including reindeer farmers.
To reindeer farmers.
There are reindeer farmers in Siberia, and they are getting conscripted as we speak.
That's right.
And apparently, there's been a bunch of like 5 or 6 recruitment centers got burned down. There's a shooting at one.
I saw the shooting one. Yeah.
Yeah. So the Russians are not cool with it, which I don't know. I'm scared to death of this whole thing because what's the solution here? Okay, so we have a civil war in Russia that gets Putin out. What does Putin do on the way out?
I don't know. I don't think Putin leaves power in Russia until he's dead.
I don't think so either. But I'm saying, what's the out? There's no out here. There is no out for Putin here, at all.
I said at the beginning. I was like, I don't see any kind of end to this.
Yeah, except like a full scale revolution inside Russia, but that gets just as nastier in the process. Because then how do we insert ourselves into that conflict? Because we will.
Right, yeah, we've given lots of weapons to Ukraine, and they're asking for longer range missiles now. I guess we'll see if we give them those, too.
Yes, we probably will. Zelensky's good on TV.
He is.
I mean, he's a handsome fellow.
Well, how many of those green shirts does he have, though?
I'm sure he's got one more.
It's about to get cold. Motherfucker's still in a T-shirt.
He's got to show off those biceps,
That's
bro.
right.
He's been working on that shit.
That's right.
I mean, I'll give him kudos for the whole I'm not leaving, because apparently we'd sent an embassy we'd sent some people who were like, hey, if you want out of here, we'll get you out of here. And he's like, no, I'm staying. Taking care of my people. Kudos for that. But the rest of the shit, I don't like it. We've gone on at length about it. I don't think we should have anything to do with any of this shit. I think their invitation to the UN was a mistake, obviously. I think the Finland and Turkey thing, not Turkey, what's the other one? Turkey wasn't happy with Finland joining.
Finland and Sweden.
Yeah. Finland's the border one, right?
Yeah.
I think did we actually sign off on that yet? Is Finland officially a UN member?
You mean NATO?
NATO, yeah, sorry.
I don't remember. I haven't checked on that one lately.
I think they've had the vote. I think they passed the vote, but it's still like a 2 or 3 year
like a process.
The longer that takes, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't think that's a wise choice to let them in, personally. But we've been over this 1,000 times. I mean, if Tyler has some thoughts, he can kick in. But
my politics is mostly local.
I try to say that way, but I can't help it. These guys don't even vote locally, so I gotta go to issues that they're willing to talk about. And I get it though, but it's the same thing. It's like I subscribe to the Compass. They don't. I mean, where do you get it? Like, where do you you made the joke? Was it like a month or two ago? You sent that story.
Which one?
The AP story
About?
I don't know, something in Knoxville. You were making the joke. I had to go to AP to get a local Knoxville story.
Yeah. Well, News Sentinel's USA Today paper has been for a couple years now, right? So
then WBR's Gannett. I don't know what they all have bigger titles. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. I mean, the Compass show this week. They had their guest was I can't remember her name. I apologize, but it was one of the editors of the Tennessee Lookout. And it's like a 5-person paper, and all they do is state government stuff. And so they were talking about it, and Jesse had asked her, it's like, she's been doing it for a while. He's like, how many people are down there in Nashville now? She's like, what do you mean? He's like, when you go down and do something on Capitol Hill or on whatever they call Nashville's building, when you're going down there and they're doing a press conference, they're like, how many reporters are there? She's like, 7.
Wow.
And Scott chimes in. He's like, yeah, like when Scott said something about when he was at News Sentinel, like it was at least 40 or 50 people there. There were 2 people from the Tennessee end. There were 2 people from News Sentinel that covered it. So there were 2 Knoxville-based reporters that are probably lived in Nashville, but that's all they did in Nashville for the News Sentinel. Right. And they don't exist anymore. There's like one Gannett guy, or one USA Today guy, and he does it for everybody, and they just all run that one story. So there's no perspective. There's a perspective.
You see that reading different stories. Like it'll say at the top, like if this story was covered by somebody else, like USA Today,
right,
Reuters, AP, whatever, Fox News.
We have gotten
NBC,
a little renaissance of local media, though. We've got the Compass, we've got Hard Knocks Wire, Tennessee Lookout. You got your podcasts.
I'm trying to get the dude from Hard Knocks Wire to come on the show.
JJ, I
guess I spoke to him through DMs through his Hard Knocks Facebook page. So whomever I was speaking to, basically was like, nah, I don't think that's a good idea. I was like, I don't care. You can come make fun of me. I don't give a shit. Like that was the thing with there's this guy Brian Cornelio or whatever. He didn't like me.
Oh, why not?
I was like, I don't know. Come on the show, man. Let's talk about it.
Yeah.
And he's like, I'm not going to come on your show and make you look like a dick. I was like, it's my show. Make me look like an asshole all you want.
I think it'd be a good show. I think it'd be a real good show. Yeah, I've met Brian a couple times. He's a sharp fellow.
He doesn't like me. He tried to come after my money.
What?
Yeah, he tried to tell the Compass guys not to work with me.
That's Brian,
so I don't like him back.
Brian, if you're listening, I would say I don't like that move, but I do like a lot of things you say.
I go back. I get in spats with him on different Facebook things because he's just very directly dismissive. It's like, I don't care. I'm right. Bye. It's like, you're not on this one.
Yeah, that's not.
Or this is not one that's
not a way to start a dialogue. That's for sure.
This is not what. Like, well, convince me and help me understand why I'm wrong. When this is an opinion issue anyway, but convince me on why I'm maybe seeing this incorrectly. But you're an asshole and an idiot just doesn't do it for me. And usually, and in most cases, for most people, I dig in on what I feel is correct.
Well, if you make somebody feel defensive, they're going to dig in. Yeah,
and I don't feel very open to being nice about the further conversation. So I don't know. I would have done it. I'd have had fun with it.
Well, I appreciate the space you've created here.
I try. It's a little warm down here tonight. Maybe I'm a little drunk.
Well, I wore my shorts because I knew we'd be under the lights down here.
That's what we're talking about. That's what it's hot in here for.
Did you flip over the HVAC? Yeah, it's usually really cold down here. I always like dress in layers.
No, it's
going to be cold.
I mean, we still have the AC running through the day. It turns off at night just because it doesn't need to run. But maybe that's what it is. It's not running as constantly, and down here doesn't travel up. I don't know. Great
local politics news content right here.
Yes, that's the important things. Right. How my HVAC works. But yeah, I think there's part of the whole we can't help ourselves but go to national politics thing that makes sense, and especially in major issues like this, because at the end of the day, at some point, this Ukraine issue is going to hit home directly onto Oak Ridge, or
well, it's already hit us at gas pumps and economically in a lot of other ways. Right. I mean, the world is complicated, obviously, but the situation in Ukraine definitely made a lot of economic things worse.
Right. And well, it's whether you think it's appropriate for the United States government to do things or not. If they're going to do things, this is not the things I want them to do. This is not how I want my money taken out of my paycheck to be spent, because I don't see a long-term good on this, and I'm sure I'm not the only eye in this conversation. There are other things that we could be spending $40 billion on that might be worth something, or we could take $20 billion less from American citizens throughout the year and let them keep it, and then still have $20 billion left over to do some cool shit like, I don't know, housing issues. Oh, look at that throwback to the beginning of the episode.
There you go.
Not that drunk, bitches.
I do prefer homes to ICBMs when government spending is part of the equation.
I just think I think that's I like that to be I always we've had the conversation on this show with this crew a couple times, and I'm always curious how other people think about it as far as if you were to design a government, or if you were to take the U.S. system and kind of tweak it to a more logical sense, how would you do it? Because we have this 3-level thing, and I don't necessarily disagree with the 3-level thing. I like the state, the local, and the federal. I think it makes sense. I don't think it makes sense how we use it, but I think the general scheme makes sense. I just think we use it weird. So if you were to recreate your version inside the 3-tier system, how would you break it down?
I don't know. The idealist in me says that the more local politics is, the better it should be, because people are more plugged into it. But we just talked about how you can have a 4-year plan to build a statue and nobody knows the trees are getting cut down. So that's a tough question to answer in the context of this. But I do think that the more power you can keep local, the better.
Right.
But on the other hand, for things like regulating the national power grids, a federal government makes sense, right? So there are some things that it makes sense for states to do together. There's some things that make sense to be independent. With the issue of abortion in the news, both the Supreme Court ruling on Dobbs and the potential nationwide ban that some Republicans are talking about.
Yeah, get on Pence. Ooh.
Yeah. So, that really does raise a question of, where should the power be, or where is it appropriate for the power to be? If we left abortion up to the states, and we'd have some that were,
like we do. That's
we do.
What we're currently under.
We essentially do. Yeah. And even before the Dobbs ruling, really we did, because abortion rights have been chipped away at for years and years, even, immediately after the, the original Roe v. Wade decision. Planned Parenthood versus Casey even chipped away at it a little bit while codifying and establishing some things. So, that's a really tough question. Is if you were going to rearrange the system, what would it look like? I guess when I think of what I want to change in the American political system, I guess I don't think so much about the local, state, federal stuff. I think about stuff like ranked choice voting, things that increase voter turnout. More. One thing I really like about Knoxville's elections is our early voting periods and how long they are, and how easy it is to vote early.
Right.
I'd love to see every state do that everywhere. That should be the norm. That plus ranked choice voting, and I don't know. Those are the two big things for me.
I like I've already said it. I agree. I think ranked choice takes out. Would nearly instantaneously take out the majority of the piss and vinegar that annoys so many people.
Yeah.
People don't like it.
No.
They just deal with it or ignore it.
Right. Yeah,
And-
like 40 to 60% of people don't vote in any given election.
Right.
Because it's like they either don't know enough about it, or it
Right,
doesn't
or
seem
like-
important enough, or
Right, Max on the show, who sits in here with me, and I go and talk about all the different people I've talked to throughout the week and all the interviews I've done. He still doesn't vote. Sam doesn't vote either. And it's like, and the mindset for Max, at least, the reason I brought him up in it is that nothing's going to change. It's the same shit. It's just going to be just a different person sitting in the seat doing the same thing that the other person would have done if they were sitting there, or whatever. Nothing really changes that much. It's the same thing over and over again. And I think that's because of the way we vote and the lack of number of people that do vote. I think I think the latter is because of the former. Did you say that right?
Yeah. No, I agree.
I think less people vote because. Right, less people vote because of I think we have poor choices. I think the way the system's built gives us poor choices.
Well, so yeah, the first past the post system we have is always going to lead to two-party, right? And then you've got the primary system where the insiders kind of choose the candidates who are going to run in the primaries. I mean, even here. So I ran in the primary here in Knoxville, right, as a Democrat. But the Democrats kind of had a candidate they already preferred. Which they couldn't do too many things overt or whatever, but there were a lot of people who were Democratic regulars who worked on Debbie's campaign.
Right.
And why wouldn't they, right, if they support her? But there is that kind of insider track where if you're in the party, it's easier to get that push for the nomination. And I think that happens at, all levels.
But there's plenty of apparatus, period. Whether it's, Elaine Davis in this district, she's the treasurer or whatever of the county party, and it's like, okay, well, obviously the party is probably a fan of hers,
right? Because
she's part of their executive committee. So, okay, they may or may not directly do anything because I don't think it's against the law, but I think it's just one of those general rules of thumb that the party doesn't get involved in.
It's like an ethics thing. It's not really illegal.
And so once the public picks their Republican candidate.
The listeners could not see the big air quotes you put on public there.
Yeah. And then they go and follow and assist their candidate from there out, which we know is not true, and they don't do it depending on who it is and what stuff like that. Because I'm in District 18 and I had to deal with the Eddie Manis Gina Oster race and all that shame or whatever you want to call it, craziness. And I just don't think I think that only works with apathy. Like all this shit that we hate most about it only works because of apathy. Mm-hmm. And it's not because, and I get it. Like, I get Max's frustration in like watching this thing happen and nothing changes. And it's like, I get it, but just ignoring it's not going to fix it either.
Yeah.
And so until we get like regular countywide elections that are pulling 60, 70% minimum, that's a bad year at 60 or 70%. Mm-hmm. Until we get to that point, then that's all we can expect because the parties are going to put who they want up, and then we deal with the candidates.
Right. Well, and how do you get there from here is the biggest question to me, because obviously the parties are entrenched and they are happy with the system as it is because it keeps them in power, right? It keeps the Republicans and Democrats are the two names in the game because of the system we have. What incentive do they have to change it? I guess we did get some change, right? We got some change in Alaska and some change in Maine with the ranked choice stuff. But
Alaska's barely a state. Just because it's the biggest one, it's not really a state.
Yeah, they got to pay folks to live
there.
Name
5 cities in Alaska.
Juneau, Anchorage, Cordova. I got 3.
Fairbanks.
Nome.
There we go.
All right, fine. Are you sure Nome's not Maine?
No, Nome's Alaska.
There's a Nome, Alaska.
Yeah.
We had to do it as a threesome. It took 3 of us to get to 5.
I could have done it just because I've seen some TV shows in Alaska.
Oh, okay. Watch a lot of Ice Road Truckers, or
a little bit of that. Yeah.
That Crabbin show. What's the
Deadliest Catch?
Deadliest Catch. Yeah. I like Micro. Micro's fantastic. He's got a fun little podcast. Have you ever heard his podcast?
I'll see. I watched some Dirty Jobs. I don't think I've seen his podcast.
His podcast is really good. Like he does, like he has a literary style. Like the way he writes, it's very engaging. It's very easy to follow. But like he does these stories, and it's just like it's like a mini biography kind of different people and stuff like that. But the way he writes them, it's like almost like a mystery. Like there's one on Eddie Van Halen, because apparently Eddie and what's the brother, the drummer from Van Halen. Yeah. Anyway, apparently when they were kids, when they first started playing, they played the opposite instruments. And so, like, he writes this whole story about how Eddie and the story that he doesn't say the names anywhere in it. I think it just says Ed is his name or whatever, and it's a girl's name for the guitar. And so it's like his love story that he's sneaking into his brother's room to be with his brother's girl, kind of thing. And it's this whole thing, and it's like 15, 20 minutes. It's not a long podcast or whatever, about how he fell in love with his brother's girl. And then at some point they switch places. It's really like the way he writes it is really like it's really engaging. It's really neat, and you get but like all of them. It's like it comes to this reveal, like because he writes it in kind of code, and then it gets to the end, and it's like, oh yeah, I know who Eddie Van Halen is.
Oh, that's kind
that
of
makes
fun.
total sense. Okay, time out. All right, how's hanging out with the kids? So anyway, we're back. We all peed. We're all fresh for round 2. I don't know what I'm talking about. What were we saying before we were talking about? National politics, problem with politics, trying to get. We named 5 Alaskan cities. That's right.
Yeah, how do we fix America? I think we're doing that real quick.
I think rank choice is number 1 for me. I think that would make the biggest difference across the board in the quality of candidates we have, because I think that gets rid because the way
it lets the voters make a riskier vote, right? Like you can put the Libertarian Party candidate as your number 1 choice, and then still put your preferred next.
Right. I can feel like, even if I have this, this Trump-Biden conundrum, I'm like, Trump or Biden? Fuck, I don't like either of those guys.
Yeah.
But I really don't like Trump, so I guess I'll vote for Biden, which would be the current method. But it's like, well, I could still vote for my Joe Jorgensen.
Right.
And put Biden as number 2, because I know Joe's not going to pull enough. But it could be a good number. It'll help future things. It'll help recruitment.
Right, maybe they get past whatever threshold to get campaign match, blah blah blah, stuff like that. Yeah, and it gives the party room to build, right?
But it also would force it. Really, I mean, Biden might still be a candidate. I don't think Trump would be a candidate. I think Trump would have a hard time in a ranked choice system, because I don't think you could, because you can't run on the problems with the other. You have to run on you.
Right.
You have to run on you and what you're going to do and what you can do and what you want to change. And it's got to be about you. It can't be about, I'm just not that, that's Trump's strong suit. I mean, there's no way around it. It's like, I'm not that. I'm not cheating Hillary.
It gives people that second option of like, all right, I'm not okay with that person, but I'd be kind of okay with this person.
Right.
Yeah.
So I think it makes a wider swath of people happier with their representation.
Because you'd get a majority, whoever wins will have a majority of the I don't hate that person vote.
Right.
I hated the least. Yeah.
Right. But again, like I said, I think it would change. It would change the way you run, and it would change the way candidates. It would just change candidates. Period. You wouldn't have, because I think with the problem we're having right now, going back to like the Gina Eddie race, Gina is the far right candidate, where Eddie was the more center right candidate. And when a center right candidate is in front of everybody, the center right candidate is more popular. But when that center right candidate is in front of only the right, the far right candidate is more popular. And so with the primary system we have, we're putting more of the far right or left. This works both ways.
Yeah.
We're putting more of the far right or left candidates in play, and then it comes down to, well, I only have far right and far left to choose from, instead of me having, center right and center left to choose from. Because the primaries force it out, not in. And I think ranked choice would be, I think that's the biggest thing that ranked choice would do. Now, again, I think the parties, if I was a party, I would probably do a closed primary. Not even a closed primary. I think I would do a convention. I don't think I would do, just for strategic sake, I don't think we would do, I wouldn't say, oh, all the Republicans that want to run can run. Because, again, one of the things with ranked choice is you don't have 2 rounds. It's one day. Election day in November or election day in August for countywide races. It's election day.
Right.
We don't have a primary back in May.
Like you were saying about conventions and caucuses, I think those are good. I think those are opportunities for the people who are interested, right, to try to put a candidate forward.
Right.
And then you get, somebody that's got real local support rather than just party support or money support. It seems like it's a better opportunity.
I don't think ranked choice takes the money issues out.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't.
But I do think it takes it would. But on the first part of what you said, I 100% agree. I think it takes that. It's like, fine, great. Democrats, you put up. I mean, if we're going to use your mayor's race as an example, Democrats, you put up Debbie. The Republicans put up
Jacobs, I guess, or
yeah. Duh. I don't know why I just blanked out on that. They didn't put up anybody. They just let Jacobs keep it.
Right.
And then we had 2 other independents.
Yeah, there were a couple independents. Yeah,
and like it could have been. I mean, like it could have been a lot of different things. It could have been a bunch of Debbie Tyler somebody else Jacobs the tickets because it's not a fixed 3. It could be 5 or 6 or 7. It just will work its way through the process, and it takes out the fact that Debbie had party support and you didn't have as much party support because it's a primary.
Well, and I had to choose which primary I was going to run in too, right? I was kind of I think of myself as a different candidate, and I don't think I would have pulled a ton of far right wingers, but there's some working class folks who probably generally vote Republican that I could have had a better message with, better rapport with, if I wasn't limited to running as a Democrat.
Right, and more importantly, I think is that if you'd ran as an independent, you would likely have taken much more out of Debbie's, and that's a strategic conversation you have to have with yourself and your campaign.
Yeah,
it's like, well, I don't like Mayor Jacobs, and so I'd rather have Debbie than Jacobs. But if I'm in here, I'm handicapping Debbie in the process, which again, ranked choice takes that part out
gets rid of that spoiler effect.
Because same thing is, it's like I vote Tyler 1, I vote Debbie 2, vote Jacobs 3. We go through the first round of thing. Tyler gets the least number of votes, that falls off. My vote goes to Debbie. I still feel good about myself at least, and maybe through the process that gets Debbie the win instead of. Because it should activate more voters, and again, I think it as much as it makes people feel better about voting, which is a good thing because that'll get more people voting. I think it will change our candidate quality. I think that's the number one thing to me on why the way we do it is terrible.
Yeah,
I'm just so I'm tired of this. It's so frustrating because it's like, okay, we have 3 people primarying. One of them I actually kind of like. There's no way they're getting through this primary. Just not happening.
Yeah, I feel like that happens a lot. Right? Yeah.
And I think that's the norm anymore, and I think that's what we see over and over and over again. It's like I don't know how else. I can't think of a better way to fix it.
Yeah,
I think campaign finance is another thing that's got a good mountain of issues, and I don't, that one's harder for me because I'm more of a free market kind of person. I don't know. I don't know how to approach that one. I think it's a problem. I just don't know the answer.
Yeah. I guess with a lot of libertarian free market kind of thought, I feel like if we all started,
you guys didn't see his air quotes.
Yeah, if we all started from the same place, right, everything would be fair. But that's not the way the world works, right?
And digging out of it's the hardest,
right?
But I mean, I don't know. I don't necessarily disagree. We have weird things. We have things in place. If I own property in the city, I'm a county resident. If I own property in the city, I can file. I think it's an aggrieved ballot. I can't remember what it's called. It's got some weird name, but essentially I can file and I can vote in. I could vote in city races for the district and citywide races because I own land in the city, even though I'm not a city resident. 9 times out of 10, that's going to be a business of some sort, whether I own rental property or I own a building that my business is in or something like that. But 9 times out of 10, that's a commercial thing. It's like, well, if a business essentially is allowed to vote at this point, why wouldn't a business then therefore be allowed to contribute to campaign?
That's what we call a slippery slope.
Yeah. I'm just saying, why?
I one person, one vote is my preferred method, not 2 plots of land, 2 votes. But
I get it, but it's at the same time, it's like, I don't know, there is a significant effect on my business and my ability to do business depending on who's in government in the municipality that my business is in, and just because I don't live in my business
still affects you. So maybe you should say, right?
It still has significant effect.
Yeah,
and so I understand the premise behind it. And when Chris Davis first told me about it, Chris Davis on your bingo board, everybody. When Chris Davis explained it to me, I was like, oh, I didn't it makes sense. It sounded weird. Oh, so you could vote even though you don't live in the city and you're not a resident, you can vote in city races. Yeah, okay. And I guess theoretically, if I bought some land out in, Claiborne County or something like that, and I think it, just because I don't live on that piece of land, I think I should have some say on what's going on in the general area. So it makes sense to me. Yeah,
that makes sense. Anything that affects you, you should have some kind of say, and that makes sense to me. Yeah.
And so, but the finance part is where I get lost. I don't know how to, nothing, $0. You're not allowed to spend any money. How do we deal with that one? That'd be
the Citizens United decision says money is speech, but that's a real complicated question.
See,
right?
I don't quite understand that. I don't know the backstory well enough on it, but it's. I always thought it was the idea that a business could, the PACs are weird to me. I think the existence of PACs is odd. They're not your campaign, but they act as if they are. But since they are not your campaign, they have a whole different set of financing rules.
Well, I guess the idea is they're supposed to make issue ads, but they can make candidate ads too. They
what's
just can't
like
coordinate? Yeah, it's very confusing.
But it'd be like, what would be the difference? Like, we'll go back again, another throwback to earlier in the episode. We go back to our Sierra Club that doesn't take the time to bother with activities when they're actually in discussion. They just wait until it's already happened to pitch a fit. They endorse candidates, or they could run an ad for a candidate as an organization, and that would be within the rules, and that would make sense. It's like, well, American candidate doesn't cut trees down. We want her to win. Okay. That's cool. I think that's a respectable thing.
Yeah, you should be able to make that statement.
But then you get into like the America First PAC or whatever the fuck it is, one of Trump's PACs. But they're scammy shit. That's a bad example. Give me another PAC that's not a Trump one. Most of those are all scammed.
Stephen Colbert had a PAC, but I think it got scammy at the end on purpose. So
I just think I just think it's one of those like where the problem. Again, we'll throw back again. It goes back to the Klan thing that we were talking about earlier. It's like, well, as much as we don't like what they're talking about, the fact that they exist is a reality, and they have a right to.
Yeah.
And so this group over here, like the Sierra Club, they have a right to exist, and they have a right to advocate for who they want as a candidate. So this group over here, whether it's the Scruffy City PAC, there's a local one.
Yeah. Well, there's Change TN. That's right. a local PAC too.
Yep.
And Indivisible. I think they're a PAC as well.
I haven't heard of them. I'll have to check them out. But it's like, so they're a group. And I guess the difference is the Sierra Club has a mission outside of politics, where these have exclusively political missions, but it's a group of people that are advocating for what they want out of their municipality. It makes sense to me.
I think where I get confused is when like for-profit corporations, like businesses, are also given that same leeway of speech. And it doesn't make sense to me to say a corporation's voice is the equivalent of all the people that make it up, and therefore it has freedom of speech as well. Because my company does not speak for me. Obviously, they're just my employer. I don't know. That is when it's an interest group. I think it makes sense. But the businesses.
Okay, so look at it like this. So, if I were your employer, right, and we'll just stick with Debbie because she's on mine, right? So Debbie's running for office, and Debbie was a union person, and as a hardcore principle of me as your employer, we are not having unions in this place. It's not going to happen. If unions start coming in this place, if this town becomes union friendly, we're getting out of here. Well, I don't speak for you as my employer electively, but I do speak for you as a employee, as a paid person who works in my business in the municipality. Yes, you can go get another job, but if I'm true to my word that says if Debbie wins, I'm getting out of town, well, you don't have a job anymore.
Well, yeah,
so I don't directly speak for you politically, but my political beliefs have more effect on you than some other company or some other person or the Sierra Club. Picking on that one, you know what I'm saying?
Yeah, sure, your beliefs could have an impact, but again, I like the idea that
it's the same way we treat tips and pilots. Like, well, you're a business, you're going to do this thing, you're going to bring in jobs. Well, we care more about you than we care about this other guy that only has 2 employees. We want you here because you're going to put 100 jobs in. Mm-hmm. And so that's the way the municipality treats that person. So why wouldn't that same outlook be electable in an electability conversation? Does that make sense?
Yeah, I guess so. A little bit.
And I'm not saying I agree or disagree with it. I'm just trying to flesh out the idea and that why it makes sense that a business, even though it doesn't speak politically for its employees, can speak on behalf of them because they may not exist if the wrong person is elected, according to the bosses.
Yeah, again, I go back to when you look at the Sierra Club, though, those are people who have joined together because of their political or environmental or whatever beliefs, right? So if the Sierra Club speaks, you can be pretty sure that its members, at least generally or in aggregate, agree with what the Sierra Club says. But if my corporate employer speaks, they didn't ask my opinion at all. I had no input on that whatsoever. I mean, it may affect me, right? And they may advocate for what they think is better for me, but I don't have any say.
Well, better for them, but that keeps you working, which is better for you.
Well,
theoretically,
I've had many jobs.
What are you doing now? You were between jobs when you were running for office.
Well, I was employed when I was running for office. I was between jobs a little bit before I ran for office, okay. and actually, I had some very interesting conversations with HR while I was running for office too. Yeah. But I don't know how much I can disclose about that.
I'm going to hear all about it. Tell me. It's late. Nobody's listening anymore. Don't worry about it.
They actually when I had my interview with HR, they said, they asked me a question like, did you say such and such about some project you worked on? And I was like, I don't recall saying that. And they said, do you remember being on the Almost in Agreement podcast?
No, they didn't.
Yes. No lie.
How do they?
They listened to the podcast because I mentioned,
Like, I feel good and bad at the same time.
yeah,
Like,
on the
I've heard-
podcast, I mentioned a job site. I didn't mention the name of my company. I just mentioned I had been at a particular place, and they asked me about that, and they were like, you shouldn't have done that. And I was like, oh, slap on the wrist, and that's all I got for it. It was no big deal. So, yeah.
I'm just gonna go ahead and pretend that they listen all the time, even though they probably just listen because you were here.
No, I'm absolutely sure my multinational corporate bosses were always listening to your
regular
local
listeners.
Knoxville podcast. Yeah.
We're accepting applications for sponsorship if anybody's interested. While we're on the topic, since apparently you pay attention to what Tyler does on his time out of work. But I don't know. Like that's weird. That's a weird spot. I'm trying to put like work. Like, I mean, I get it on their point, at least maybe not for like privacy issues. That's whatever. That's to the side. But I can see on their side. This goes back to our it's a throwback episode tonight. Apparently, this goes back to our Chief Noel bit of conversation. It's like, you were publicly seeking another job. HR is going to care about that.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Because at least this one, like, if you're running for commission or city council or something like that, it's a different story. It's part-time. You can do both.
Right.
But,
No, mayor, full-time position.
Right, mayor's a
Absolutely.
full-time position. You don't get to keep that job. So you're basically out there saying, hey, I'm about to quit. Maybe. We'll see what everybody says.
I regularly tell my employers that my loyalty is for sale. So if it wasn't, I wouldn't be working for them.
I'm sure the mayor's office is probably a pay increase, too.
Let's see. City mayor was a slight increase. County mayor would have been a good increase. Yeah.
Yeah, county's 180 something.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
No. So it's good money.
Yeah. It's not bad.
That's another weird rule. Like fun little stupid weird things I've learned. State law requires that the county mayor makes 10% more than the county sheriff.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was interesting, and I never got Debbie on the show to talk to her about it. I was going to ask her because she was publicly talking about how she'd take a pay cut. I was like, well, how does Sheriff Spengler feel about that?
I remember looking at it, and I think that the mayor's office could take like a $20,000 pay cut and still be within the legal. I looked at something about that because I was curious about it too, because I was thinking about making a statement like that as well, because I have I'm very fortunate to have a 6-figure job now. But
that's why I drink the beer when he brings it to me.
Yeah, that's why I bring you the nice beers
And the whiskey.
Yeah.
Screw those guys. I'm not talking about them on the show. I told you they beat me at Power and Derby. Those fuckers. They're also not coming to my event.
Oh, that is. I did bring you the beer from the Once the Beach, huh?
Yeah, those evil bastards.
Very crafty.
Oh, these are the jokes, people. This is what happens when it gets late and we're not drinking beer that's craftish. Yeah, everybody on air drinking at the same time.
Nice.
Catch up, Sam. God damn, dude. You're not even talking. You don't even have
You
the
got to
excuse
precurse that shit. I didn't know we were cheersing.
You didn't even have the excuse if you were in the middle of a sentence. Just drink. What were we saying? Yeah, Debbie was going to take a pay cut, and I would be curious. I kind of be really curious how that'd work. Like, I'd really like if she could pull it. Like, if she's like, well, I'm only going to take 100. What happens to Spengler?
Yeah, I don't think she'd be able to do that. I think the min was like 160.
Because I think the state mandates it at the state mandate has a mandate minimum for both of them.
Yeah.
I don't remember what it is.
Yeah.
Well,
the highest paid county employee is the school superintendent, right? He got like 220, I think.
I thought it was the medical examiner.
Oh, is it? Okay.
I thought it was like 260, 250.
Oh, dang.
Something. Yeah,
Okay.
it's up there.
Okay. Well, there's a couple higher than the county mayor, that's for sure.
Right, because I remember because this was full pandemic craziness or whatever, and I remember there was a conversation. I don't remember where I saw it, but it was Buchanan is the boss of the highest paid person in the county. It's like, what? That's weird. Then you think about it, it's like, oh, you're the chief medical examiner of the county. You got a lot of you got all sorts of shit you got to do, and be damn good at.
You would hope they would be highly qualified and therefore highly compensated. Yeah.
Yeah, you got to outpay being a practicing doctor at this point, and that's at least 2-ish. So it makes sense. No,
Biden just forgave $10,000 of debt though. That should clear all those doctors up, right? They should be good to go now.
I don't. That's so dumb. It's so dumb. It makes me like it. Like that to me is the perfect example of the ineptness of the federal government. Like, it drives me crazy. It's like, yes, what a great gesture to get you votes coming here in November. What a great way to buy a few more college kids or recently graduated kids that are probably left-leaning anyway. Hey, remember how I knocked 10 grand off your debt? Vote for me again. I might knock 10 more off.
Well, I honestly, I like to see the Democrats making moves that get them votes because they don't do that very much.
I mean, you're right, but I don't know. If you take a half a second to really put some thought to it, it's a slap in the face. It doesn't do anything. It doesn't fix anything. You know, we still have got UT splitting up colleges, adding 15 fucking more admins. That are
and the kids are still taking on debt. The kids are still taking on debt.
Right. Like, I mean, yeah, the kid, like, because, like, yeah, we were talking about it when it came out, and it was like the kid that just started this week at UT.
Mm-hmm. That 10K will cover what, his first semester or two?
Right. What a punch in a dick. It's not going to cover anything. He hasn't taken any debt yet. Yeah. You know, and it's like everybody after me or everybody before me got at least 10 grand back, and I'm the first one to get nothing. Mm-hmm. You know, that's a story of my life because I was the first generations of kids to start to go to college before the lottery fund kicked in. So I was the last generation of, like, I graduated from high school, went to college. There was the Hope Scholarship wasn't in place yet. Like, we'd had the lottery for like a year and a half, but the payouts didn't start coming out yet. And so I wasn't eligible for the entirety of college. Like, it wasn't like in my junior year I could be like, oh, we're paying out. No, hit me up. No, it's too late. You had to be a freshman the year after me to have any of that money.
Yeah, that's kind of a jerk way to do it.
Yeah, and then everybody gets, you know. But then all of a sudden, you know, tuition gets more and more expensive. I don't really understand why.
We should probably just stop making the world better for future generations. You know, stop doing improvements.
The lottery thing's dumb. Like, it's so stupid.
It doesn't help everybody.
If you're gonna do it, if you're gonna do it, it should be for lower ed. That's like why were you, like, we can just keep graduating, you know, okay kids from high school, and then we can help them in college. Well, that's good. Well, why don't we get them better out of high school instead of just graduating okay? Yeah. That'd be a better use of the money to me. But to go back to you giving me shit about helping anybody, yeah, sure, but it doesn't fix anything. It's not a fix. It's a vote purchase.
Yeah, nobody got anything out of it.
Not really. It's not a significant sum. When you're talking about 100 grand in debt, 10 grand is not a big number.
You're saying it's not a significant sum, and at the same time you're saying it was stupid and pointless anyway.
I know some people who had the remainder of their debt wiped out.
My wife's is going to be, and it's great. Cool.
That's good.
Awesome.
Right, but
give it back to them. You don't want it.
But you're right. It doesn't. It's not a systemic fix.
If the federal government's giving out money, I'm fucking taking it every goddamn time. They take enough, I'm taking it back. But it's not a fix. Like, if we're gonna, if we acknowledge there's a problem. And that's the justification for doing it.
It definitely is an acknowledgement of a problem.
Right.
Yeah.
There is a problem here with the way this thing is, where these kids are going to school and taking on massive debt, and even when they get out and get work, they can't get out of this debt, and they're passing this debt on to their children, and all this kind of shit, that this is a problem with this system. This doesn't do anything for that systematic problem.
Let's change nothing and write one check.
Right. That's the problem I have with it.
There was I'm trying to remember the statistic I saw recently. It was something they estimated it was like 200,000 or 300,000 students that collectively have, it was like $1.3 trillion in student debt, is what I guess American student debt is at.
Yeah, I mean, hell, there's there's a number of stories. There's people that are getting their Social Security garnished to pay student debt.
Yeah, your retirement money,
right,
garnished for student debt. It's wild.
That was taken out of your check for the entirety of your working career.
You probably have paid that debt multiple times over. Or your original principal multiple times over.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it's there's a larger systematic problem that this doesn't fix, and that's what frustrates me about it. Yes, I'm going to take it.
Yeah.
No, I don't think it really does a lot of help to many people. Yes, there are some people that it benefits. I think the number is like 30-something million people that will get to take advantage of this once it gets in place and once everything gets shuffled around, if the Republicans don't figure out how to sue to get it off, which they're trying to.
Which that's wild to me too. It's like this is a small Band-Aid that doesn't quite fix the issue, and I feel like most people acknowledge it's an issue, and now the Republicans are like, let's tax everybody that got that money.
I'm trying to figure out what the Republicans are wanting to save money for, because they're not the ones wanting to save money to go send to Ukraine. They're not the ones saving money for defense shit anymore. It's the Democrats that are the war crazy ones now. And so, like, what are the Republicans wanting to save money for?
They're going to build that wall, man.
No, they're not.
More tax breaks.
Trump's coming back. He's going to build that wall. He's going to finish it.
Like, I mean, but on the principle, the party principle shit, I get where they're coming from. I think politically, especially right now, it's a bad move to try to do anything to push back on this, because at the end of the day, we've spent, I don't know how many multiples of that already in Ukraine.
Well, like you said, it's the Democrats buying votes, and then the Republicans.
I mean, that's going back to the two-party thing.
I'm not sure what they're doing.
Going back to the two-party thing that we were talking about earlier, too, though, it's like I feel like somehow it's a fight to the bottom. Like, they're trying to fight to the bottom. Our lawyer friend that we've had on the show a bunch of times, like, he was one of many people that's like, Roe Wade's never going away. Let's just put this thing to bed. Why do we still argue about this? And I'd argued for the longest. It was a great... Like, neither party wanted to actually let it go away. They wanted to make that the problem and complain about it.
Oh, it's a moneymaker, yeah.
Right, let's run on it. We run on it constantly. We win elections by our abortion stance, whichever side of it we're on, but if there's a change to it, then we don't get to run the same way. The Democrats get to still run on it, but the Republicans don't really have as much power to run on it as they did when they were running against it existing. And there's so many issues like that. It's like, why would you fix that? Don't fix it. Just keep fucking it up. And so we're at this race to the bottom, and it blew my mind when that overturned. It's like, you guys had a runaway. Like, the Republicans had a runaway on these midterm elections. And technically, they weren't elected. They were the appointed judges, whatever. It's like, but they talk to everybody. They know what's going on. It's the result of
elections, though. I mean, that's the presidential elections for the past 12 years has been like, it's about the Supreme Court.
Right. It's not like any of these judges aren't talking to, McConnell or Trump or any other, or Bush or anybody else regularly. It's like, if Alito didn't get permission to write this decision from somebody, I'd be surprised. Now, we're going to hear about who that permission came from. Probably not, but there are people that have influence on that conversation.
What are you talking about? Permission? It was an upcoming case.
Okay,
so yeah, he had already started on his brief.
You don't think that there are that in the top levels of the Republican Party, that there are people that Alito talks to that said, no, you cannot do that right now. That'll kill us in the midterms.
Nah, honestly, I don't think so. I think the right wing takeover of the Supreme Court has been something that
it's been a long.
It's like a 40-50 year project.
Sure.
And this was like they finally got what they were after, that power on the court, and then it was a strange move, right? Overturning Roe right before the midterms. A more savvy political move would have been to wait till the next cycle. But I feel like when you look at Kavanaugh and the other judges that have been appointed recently, and even Clarence Thomas, like, they were appointed to overturning Roe was like part of their mission the whole time as they were coming up through the judicial system, and like that's what their goal has been. And now they were in the seats of power to do it. They finally had that 6-3, 5-4 majority they needed to get Roe, and they did it. It was a weird move to do it when they did, but I don't know if they were...
Right, well, at least the timing of it, I agree with that.
Yeah. I think if they had somebody they were listening to, they would have waited one more.
But I don't know, because I still think it's one of those that, I don't know, you got to have... You didn't get the job without it, without this the political savvy of everything that's going on. You personally and your political savvy as a judge through the process and doing what you did, because there's politics through the whole game. You don't get appointed to a seat without playing politics, and playing politics is a friend's game. Everybody knows everybody. It's a game back and forth. Yeah. So I might have been overstating it, but I still think like just the idea that there's so many that I don't know. It just feels like there's so many things that's like. This party has a runaway in front of them, and then somehow this thing comes up that just handicaps them somehow.
Yeah, it's the dog catching the car, man. That's what it feels like to me. It's
right.
Like they've been running after it for so long, they just got it a little too early. So
I like that. I might steal that.
Eating that tailpipe.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's not just that one. I'm not thinking of any other specifics right now. Like, it seems a regular occurrence to me. It's always the October surprise, which we don't have, which we got another week or so. But we always have the October surprise or whatever it is. But we always have these things, but it's like, I don't know, it's like, Biden got nominated. Like to me, but the Biden nomination didn't make sense to me. It's like, you guys have every possible chance to beat what is arguably one of the worst candidates ever. Different parties and different people you want to talk to might say the best president that's ever existed. Some say the worst. We'll see how it goes, but history has its way of sorting things out. But then this is the candidate, and it's like, come on, like, really, this is the best we got? Trump and Biden, that's the best we can put up.
Yeah.
we're too late. Trump was already president. He's running again. Fine.
Well, we've talked
we're
about
stuck
that
with
two-party system, though. They don't have to put up the best, right?
Right.
You know, they're hoping that the best gets eliminated in the primary, and we're left with two shoddy choices that they can control. You know.
Yeah, I mean, Tulsi was my favorite. Tulsi was my favorite. Mostly because she called this Russian shit back in the election.
She did.
She was asked point blank, what is the biggest threat to like world security on she's like Russia. Period. This is before anything was going on. And everybody was like, what? We got all this shit going on in Syria and Yemen and all this other stuff in the world. We got China and Taiwan and all that kind of shit. She's like, nope, Russia. Russia's the biggest problem. Vladimir Putin's the biggest problem we're going to have. We've got to fix that relationship. That's it. Period. Like, you're crazy. Actually, she was a Russian asset. That's right. Hillary said so.
That's right. Yeah, Hillary said she was a Russian asset. So, yeah.
That's how easy politics is. Tyler's a Russian asset. Don't vote for him.
Oh no, you got me.
Good luck running next time.
Oh man.
But wait, but Trump's a Russian asset too.
I don't know.
I
They
don't
all
get
are.
it. I'm so confused.
I think he's like a double agent.
I did hear
really.
Snowden got his citizenship in Russia, which is exciting and weird. Like,
Yeah.
you know, he can at least move freely around a very unfree country, as opposed to being locked down.
There's
wherever
more
he
of those
was.
invisible air quotes on freely.
Yeah. Apparently, he kind of announced it by responding to his own tweet that he had done like 2 years ago. When he announced that he applied for, I think it was when he was applying for dual citizenship.
Him and God, I just blanked out on WikiLeaks.
Assange.
Julian.
Julian Assange.
Yeah.
We need to fix those. Those are good people. They need to be the right people.
He was in the news recently. I thought like the U.S. was getting ready to extradite him.
They've been.
It seemed like the U.K. was finally like, okay, yeah, I think we'll send him back over.
Yeah, the UK has agreed to give him over, and they're now in like an appeal of the decision to agree to let him come and face trial here. I mean, he's already dead. Apparently, he's lost his shit, and he's real sick. He's been real sick for like 2 years.
Huh? I hadn't heard that.
Yeah.
Well, he was in like house arrest in the Ecuadorian embassy for like.
And apparently, his cat's
Forever.
pissing everywhere or something like that.
Oh,
Sam
wow.
was saying.
Jeez.
That was a funny story.
He wasn't taking care of his cats, but I mean, it's fucking crazy to me. Like, it's crazy the idea that either one of them. I mean, no, it makes. I'm sorry, take it back. It makes perfect sense. Like, it's totally logical. But it's crazy to me that we get to celebrate our 4th of July and talk about freedom when guys that tell the truth are on the lam. And if the right people got their chance, they'd be dead already. It's fucking crazy to me.
Yeah, you try to tell the truth, and FBI comes knocking on your door for an unrelated matter.
Just to clarify again, we do not necessarily agree with the words of our guests. We do not advocate nor promote their activities personally. We just like to talk to them because they're interesting people.
Disclaimer.
Like that's what scares the shit out of me in the big game. Like in the big game we're playing, it's like, you got like a little bit of a shift on that, but it's like, there was the whole mess in the 2016 election about the Russian propaganda on Hillary Clinton. It's like, well, why are we talking about the Russian part of it? Is it true or not? Mm-hmm. Like, there were real things that they were saying. Now, is it a foreign government interfering in elections? Okay, maybe. But is it true or not? Let's not argue about whether some Russian told us that this thing was happening or not.
Yeah, sure, that's an issue, but address the truth.
Right, let's figure out if this is a thing or not. And if this thing is a thing that's worth looking at. Just because somebody from some other country told us so doesn't make it invalid statement.
Yeah, it doesn't really matter where the information came from. What matters is if it's true or false.
Right.
Yeah.
I guess I am working my way on getting the FBI knocking on my door, too. And I just need to accept it and embrace it. And I'll just call lawyer Jamie, and he'll have to fly up from Florida now that he moved and come defend me, because I'm going to get myself in trouble at some point when you're... Because I don't know where we go from here. That's just like I am scared to death of this Ukraine issue. Like, I'm scared to death of where this goes, because I don't see it ending, like we said earlier, without a lot of death. And whether that death comes here or not scares the shit out of me.
Man, there's already been so much, Ukrainian and Russian both.
Right.
It's crazy. It's just the loss of life.
But I don't see where we just on the more domestic front. I don't see where we go from here. I don't. Like, I know solutions exist, but I don't see any will to get there. Like, what are we going to do? How are we going to move forward from this? Like, whatever this thing is, we just can't keep barreling down this basic path. And it's like, I'm getting a little scared about it. I'm not going to lie.
Yeah, man portable rocket launchers and $10,000 of student debt relief, and neither one of them fixes the systemic issue.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, vote Tyler for president. I don't know. Like, where do we go?
Oh, that's a job I don't want.
Oh fuck! I was like, going back. I think before the break, and we were sidetracked. And I was like, the re-breakdown of the way we look at this thing. Like, I acknowledge the need. Actually, I don't know. See, that's my problem. Like, I've kind of gotten on board with the national divorce conversation. Like, the idea that there is certain
unreconcilable differences.
A couple beers, people, relax. That I don't know that we can get over. Like, I don't know that we as a nation can settle that. And so to keep this marriage because it's been there, I don't know if that's the right move. Like, at some point, everybody agrees that those two need to get a divorce. Somebody's going to die or something at the end of this thing if they stay together. So we maybe need to split this thing up.
Yeah, when I start thinking that way, though, and I think about the divide that we have in the United States, especially politically, it is very urban-rural in a lot of places. And so it's like, how do you divide how do you do the divorce, right? Do you make all the left-leaning people in Tennessee move to California when the states separate? I mean, like, even if we ended this national project, the states themselves are pretty divided in a lot of places too. So
that's fair. Yeah, that's a good point. I think that's one of the things that is the most hopeful part about it to me, is that we have that option. It's not an easy option. Some people it's an easy option. Some people it's a really, really hard option. But you have that option. You can go to those places. Mm-hmm. I mean, and they can't deny your entry. Like, that's the one big thing. I can move to Illinois. Illinois has a bunch of laws and a bunch of things, and the general political thing that I agree with, I can move there. Or I can move to Texas, and I can move there, which apparently they're probably not very happy with, because a lot of people move to Texas right now. But we're in Tennessee, where a lot of people moving here. And so I don't know. Like, I'm trying to figure out I guess my bigger issue is, what issues should who have control over? Like, that's the thing to me, is like, I don't like a lot of the stuff that the state has here. Like, I don't understand, like, the school system set. Like, I don't understand why it's the state schools Knox County chapter, because it's not Knox County schools. Like, that's one of the things that I've learned in this process, is we are not a separated school system. We are just a separated mini government body over this local version of it.
Most state education is set up that way, right? There's like a state Department of Education that selects the books and blah blah blah, and the localities have to do X, Y, Z.
Yeah, and I just don't like. I'm curious what the benefit is. Like, what's like, is it because it is, or is it because there's some actual benefit to that? Yeah. Theoretically, if there was, a non-corrupt government system buying books and stuff, then it would be cheaper to buy books for an entire state worth of schools instead of just again, like a Claiborne County that doesn't have the mass that a Knox County does. Knox County can buy whatever the fuck they want.
That's definitely part of it. And I think there's like 2 or 3 major, like, textbook makers.
Right.
That essentially make textbooks all across the U.S.
But that's a perfect example to me. Like, the textbook thing is a perfect example to me, because they're overpriced. They're way too expensive. And with a school system as big as Knox County schools, we could be making our own. We could go out there. We could have a small department that goes out there and gets the licensure for different articles and texts and stuff like that. Gets all that stuff and creates those books for us. It's the Claiborne counties again. I don't know why I'm picking on Claiborne County tonight. I just am. It's the Claiborne counties that can't afford to do that, and that's why a state body needs to exist to assist them. But if Knox County and Davidson and Shelby County were all creating their own books, well, then the other counties could have an option for more books than those 3 major those 3 major printers.
What if we take that same idea to the national level, though, right? Like, why not just have a national school system and a national set of books? It's like it's really tough to figure out where you want to put that line. We say that
local here. Yeah.
Right. Most of our, if you say, like, the state should be able to make their own books, then, like you said, could go even further to each county or each individual city within that county wants to make their own books.
Sure.
They're like, well,
why
you
not?
can make your own books.
If you can do it inside the budget that you have, do it. Like, the idea that you're contracted and you're stuck with the books that the state sends down to you.
The immediate concern, I guess, would be if someone moves to another county and all of a sudden you're learning 2 totally different things. They're like, well, we had a different textbook, and they're like,
okay, well, but we're in America.
So you're shit out of luck. You got to learn
do what I
from
did.
This textbook now.
You moved from Wisconsin in high school where you have 7 classes a day down to Tennessee where there's 4. You know how fucked that up? Do you know how fucked that is as a freshman in high school?
Yeah, it changed.
I can
it
tell
up
you
for
all about it. It sucked.
We did it here. I'm sorry.
Okay, but that's what I'm saying. You're saying
My middle school to high school did the exact same thing. High school,
I was a half of year into high school. My freshman year of high school, taking 7 classes a day. So I was half finished with 7 classes, and I come down here to a 4 class a day system.
All right.
So you had finished your first semester and had completed 4 classes. Completed. So I start my second semester freshman year and have completed 0 classes. I'm halfway through a bunch of classes.
Or you
that we're not teaching the same
that
thing.
much further ahead. Because I only completed 4 classes, where you halfway completed 7 classes.
Guess how many credits I had? Whatever the fuck 4 classes is worth in Knox County. By the end of my freshman year.
So you got your
So different states do things differently. So moving from state to state or county to county shouldn't. I mean, what's the fucking difference?
That was obviously your fault for your timing of your move.
Right. Yeah. Well, that was supposed to be. Thanks to my sister, that was supposed to be the less impactful socially way to move because we moved her between her 8th and 9th grade year, and so all the kids in her when she was a freshman thought that she was from the other schools. So like all the middle schools that feed into the one high school. So like she had a really hard time making friends because everybody's like, oh, she's from the other middle school. She's from the other middle school. And
She's
so
got friends.
when we moved down here, my parents had talked to her about it. And she's like, well, it was really hard because everybody thought I was from the other middle school. So nobody wanted to be my friend. And so my parents intentionally moved me down here halfway through the year.
So you would
clear.
obviously be the new
Right,
kid.
I'm obviously the new kid.
Yeah.
And so, yeah.
Well, your sister had it bad one way. You had it bad the other way.
Yeah. I'm just saying, like, it's only to illustrate the point that the idea.
Well, no, I
that,
think you illustrated my point even further. That going from one different school system to the next.
So I think we've
So we
decided
should have
national
those.
standards
Right.
for books.
We need
Yeah,
a-
I think that's
we-
what we
we
just
need a
figured
national
out.
standard.
Yeah.
That's what you're. I mean, that is, if I'm wrong, then that is the conclusion we're coming to.
Yeah, things can only be black and white. Things are only 1 and 0. There's no other.
Oh no, I've made that point before when we've talked about like textbooks. Like, why should one state have to learn this versus another? And it's like, so we all have the same same knowledge.
Maybe a diversity of knowledge is better. Who knows? Maybe we're the wrong
But
people.
I mean,
to decide
again, like I mean, I went to middle school. I went to middle school in Wisconsin, and they taught Wisconsin state history in like 7th grade.
Right.
Which, if
did-
you go to
we
middle
did
school
that
in
here.
Tennessee, you get Tennessee state history.
Right.
So there's a whole subset of history that you don't get because you don't live in Wisconsin.
Okay. I'm sorry you missed out on Tennessee history.
I mean-
Didn't miss much.
I mean, it took me a long time to catch up with all these names that I see all the time, like all these fucking street names and shit.
We really
Like
did.
Fort Sanders. Like, what the fuck is Fort Sanders? I
really-
still don't know what Fort Sanders is.
We really didn't learn that much.
It's a bunch
in
of
Tennessee
it's a bunch of what
history.
used to be really cool ass houses that have gotten ruined by college kids. That's what Fort Sanders is, and a hospital. All right.
All right. Yeah, I'm sorry.
I didn't make your theme music. What's the story?
Tennessee
Of the,
history was.
what's the story of the
wasn't
weird, Sam?
comprehensive.
What's our Florida man story?
Oh
of the week?
man, damn old Coors tractor trailer man flipped over in Florida, man. Spilled everywhere.
You can't. Oh, that can't be the story.
That was it.
Yeah, that's weak sauce. All right, let's pull it up here. Do.
That was one of the few I could find from Florida since
I mean,
kinda
I do agree,
stuck
so-
to Florida the past few times.
So Sam from AP News: Florida highway covered in Coors Light beer
Oh, that's a great photo.
after semi crash. Well, where was the one with the ramen? That was floating around. So that was floating around social media. It's like
I didn't hear about that one.
Couple of those were still
total
drinkable.
cost $74 or something like that. That's the joke.
Yeah,
The whole truckload
truck
of
of ramen.
turned over.
25
The-
cents
the
a
company-
pack, $75 lost.
The company lost $75. Brooksville, Florida. A Florida highway had to temporarily close Wednesday after semi-trailer carrying cases of Coors Light crashed and turned the roadway into a silver sea of beer cans. Nice.
A silver sea.
Nice. Who wrote this? Kudos to whoever wrote this story. The multi-vehicle crash occurred shortly after 6 a.m. in the southbound lanes of Interstate 75, about 30 miles. Oh, wow.
Wow, it's got the European units in
Yeah,
there.
48 kilometers. Thank you, AP. North of Tampa. The Florida Highway Patrol said in a news release, the pileup began when one semi-trailer clipped another. What was the other one? Are they both Coors Light trailers?
They were just trying to cheers.
That's the only one that's spilled.
I mean, like, it's two trucks hit each other. What was in the other truck?
Oh, the semi that failed to stop was filled with cases of... Oh, that's the Silver Bullet beer. Okay.
The pileup began when one clipped the other. That forced other semis to brake, but one failed to stop and collided with a pickup truck. Ooh, hope that guy's okay. and another one of the stopping semis. The semi that failed to stop was filled with cases of the Silver Bullet Beer. How many catchphrases are they going to use? Like, they're really working all the different branding of Coors right now.
They even capitalized it because it is a branded.
That would be the proper thing. That's where I fuck up a little. It's like part of my responsibilities for the Compass podcast is to write the show notes.
The blurb. Yeah.
Yeah. There's been the blurb on the podcast or whatever. And it's like, I got 2 pro writers and I got to put this shit together. Come on, guys. And so, like, there was a couple, like, it was like episode 10 or something like that. Jesse texted me. He's like, that's a semicolon. It's like, nobody knows how to use a semicolon, right, man? Nobody's going to notice that shit.
I try. I still don't know if I use it correctly. But.
That's why you do audio media, right?
I'm the ellipses. Like, I'm just like my most common punctuation is the ellipses. ... all the time. Anyway, the inside shoulder and travel lanes were open to traffic by 8:30. The rest of the roads were open around 9. Who wrote the story? I want to give kudos to his writing skills.
Yeah.
It usually says at the top or the bottom.
Just AP wire, no byline.
AP wire, yeah. Well, good on you, whoever wrote that story, Brooksville, Florida. They've got a hurricane coming. Get the fuck out if you're in Florida right now.
Yeah.
Wolf.
Can't imagine. Yeah, we'll see. Whatever we get Saturday, I guess, Saturday, Sunday, is the leftovers from this mess is what we're expecting, which sucks because I'm supposed to have an outside birthday party Saturday. Not that your Florida situation isn't worse, but...
Really sorry about your birthday. Class 4 hurricane, they said, right?
It's 3.
3 by landfall.
When it was leaving Cuba.
You know why I love Tennessee? No earthquakes, no forest fires, except that one. No hurricanes.
We have earthquakes.
Yeah, I was going to say you better knock on that table.
Not of subsistence.
Not large ones, right?
Not yet.
Sure.
We do have some regular, right? But see, I'm of the school of when it happens, it's going to be the big one, and I'm good with that because I want to die. You know, so when Putin gets pissed off and he starts nuking us, Oak Ridge is going to get hit. I'm dead. Great.
Yeah, that's kind of a plus,
If
right?
that's the way we're going to do it, and this is a total theft from Rogan. Rogan's thing is like, if the asteroid comes, I want to hit it right here, right in the middle of the forehead. Just get it over with quick. I don't want to do the nuclear holocaust.
Oh, all that Survivor stuff. Like every time I watch The Walking Dead, I'm like, I wouldn't want to live a single day.
Yeah, it just doesn't sound like it. Just sounds like a lot of work for nothing.
Yeah.
Now, if the kids make it through, then it's a separate story. But if they're going to die, I'm going to die. It's good. I'm good with it. Last call. Anything else? Anything we missed?
You said asteroid. You see, we sent a
Yes.
spacecraft up to
I was
to
super
knock
jacked
an
about
asteroid.
that.
How did that go? Did they divert it? I saw they landed the thing.
They said they won't know for like 2 or 3 weeks. They're like analyzing the data. But
Was it good? Wait,
they took a picture of it
They
right
landed
before
it?
it hit.
I thought they were running into it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
smashed
they
into
ran
it.
into
They were
it.
trying to make it change course.
But today they released a picture of like the last picture of this thing, the dart, I guess
it's
it
like
was
what
called.
it saw before it died.
Right.
Yeah. So it's a close up of a rock. Check.
Yes,
But
yeah.
apparently there's
Super close up.
Actually, it's not even that close. Like it was like the last clear image they had, so they must have had some.
right.
Yeah.
But apparently, I think I saw on like WBR today, they've always got down at the bottom like 2 or 3 like fact check things, and some of them just like, did you really have to put this out and like
Yes, you
correct
have
this
to.
to
You
people?
have to. The FDA needs to tell kids not to boil chicken in NyQuil. It's important.
Jeez.
But they had to put one out. Apparently, there's already like false shit going around that NASA running into that is now going to cause
Yes, put it in-
asteroids.
yeah.
gonna
Yeah.
come to the
Why
Earth.
would they have done that unless one was going to hit us? That's what I've seen people say.
They're like, no.
I mean, it sucks because like some of the craziest conspiracy theories that you've ever heard end up being true.
That's true.
And so it sucks because it's like, man, there's a door here.
no, it's just more of they don't know that it's not true, and that's what like.
Somebody at
That's what worries me
NASA
the
saw
most.
Armageddon. Really liked that scene with the animal crackers on Liv Tyler's belly. I was like, I gotta hit this asteroid. That's all it was.
I mean, I'm not mad at the idea that we could test the program because it's not a bad idea. Because like these are things that government might do.
Yeah.
Not making sure that Putin doesn't take 100 square feet of fucking Ukraine away. Anyway, last call. Anything else? All right, that's the show, everybody. Tyler Gibbons!
Thank you.
Tyler Gibbons is here. We talked about stuff. We're all over the map. That was a fun show. I really enjoyed that. Thanks for coming. We're Almost Agreement, almostagreement@gmail.com. Find us on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube. Go to the website, almostagreement.com. Check out my voter guide 22. It does not have Tyler on it, sadly. Even if we did, it doesn't matter.
Maybe
But
next year.
it does have some ballot item information if you want to figure out those 4 ballot items. Figure it out before you go because it's a lot of reading if you don't. And you don't want to spend a half hour doing all that kind of shit. Twitter, Facebook, YouTube, website. I did all those things. Go to your favorite podcast provider. Like and share us there. Tell your friends about us. We're going to keep doing shows like we do. We're going to get more candidates on here when we can. And again, an apology to that poor Ellen Davis lady that knocked on my door. I didn't mean to be a dick. It was a joke that I didn't realize. Like, I didn't think about the fact that you have no idea what the joke is. So anyway, we're almost here, everybody. Thanks for listening. Have a good night, and we'll talk to you soon.